Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 word and to the 2021 Hungarian Grand Prix race reaction. Was that Hungary? Really? What was that about? Oh, what a race. What a race. I'm not going to lie. I was fully expecting to come into this stream trying to find something to talk about, but oh my days, have we got plenty to get through. Oh, did you enjoy that one, chat? I thought it was fantastic. That could have gone on all day, although not if you're Esteban Ocon or Sebastian Vettel, maybe, but that was absolutely fantastic to watch. Great stuff, start to finish. Bit of chaos at the start, as I'm sure many of you will know, and tension all the way to the end, and a brand new race winner. I've got Dan with me a little bit later to talk about this, but let's kick things off with a look at that bizarre race result. I'll come to you in a second, Charles. I'll get through the race result first. You're early today. You caught me off guard. Esteban Ocon is a Formula One Grand Prix winner. Unbelievable. What a drive. What a race. You could have given me 10 guesses at the winner, and I'd never gone with Esteban Ocon. Nothing against him, but wow, unbelievable. Sebastian Vettel, second place, his second of the season. That was a mouthful. Lewis Hamilton, somehow third. I have no idea how. Fourth place, Carlos Sainz, fantastic today. Fernando Alonso was back. Fifth place for him. Sixth for Pierre Gasly. Seventh for AlphaTauri. Do not adjust your sets if you haven't already. Nicholas Latifi, eighth place. George Russell in ninth. Huge for Williams. 10th for Max Verstappen. Verstappen fans, I get it. That's going to suck, but that point could be huge at the end of the season if it stays close, so bear that in mind. Kimi Raikkonen, 11th place for him, 12th for Daniel Ricciardo, 13th for Mick Schumacher, who I think deserves a lot of love today. I really, really do. Great drive from him, all things considered this week. And Antonio Giovinazzi in 14th, and your retirements list. Deep breath. Nikita Mazepin, Lando Norris, Sergio Perez, Lance Stroll, Charles Leclerc, and Valtteri Bottas. Oh, I don't know how to introduce him other than, you're right, mate. How was that?
That was lovely. That was something special. Thanks for having me, dude. I'm so looking forward to this.
Oh, I mean, I just said at the start there, I could have had 10 guesses at the winner. How long would it have taken you to have picked Ocon if someone asked you for a prediction today?
A while. Although, you know, if you told me to predict who was going to be in the points, Latifi probably would have been right at the bottom. So, I just can't believe what we've just seen.
Absolutely insane. I mean, I want to start with the positives, which of course is Esteban Ocon, Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton, but we kind of can't get to that without talking about turn one first, can we? So we're going to start on a bit of a negative, unfortunately, I guess you could call it. So apologies to you guys. I will do super chats in just a moment. I want to just crack on very quickly. So we'll talk about that first corner first, Dan. Absolute chaos. If you didn't catch it, obviously you did, Dan, and I did, but if you didn't catch it in chat, Valtteri Bottas got it all wrong at the start. He doesn't like a wet start, does he, Bottas? And he just got it all wrong, fell back behind a number of cars, got it all wrong in turn one, locked up, slid straight into the back of Norris, who then pinballed, if you like, into the two. It created a chain reaction, which was in Norris into the two Red Bulls and Bottas. It just absolute madness. Lance Stroll trying to avoid it all, throws it up the inside, ends up on the grass, wipes out Charles Leclerc. Chaos through the field. I mean, I've always said that not every single incident has to be somebody's fault. But I think, especially on the first lap, but I think on this one, Dan, and the fact the stewards have given him a 5-place grid drop for Belgium already, that's all on Bottas.
First time all weekend those drivers were out on intermediate tyres. I don't think anyone was really expecting it on lap one. I think we were keeping our fingers crossed, weren't we, that it was going to be halfway through the race. Hopefully there's going to be some rain. So the fact we got it straight from lap one, awesome. But yeah, Valtteri got it so wrong. Yes, he maybe could have gone to the inside, then hit Lewis. So maybe he made the most of a bad situation. But you've got to be careful. When you're fighting in a world championship, which they are, I'm trying not to be too harsh here because it was wet and it was tricky. But when you're fighting in the world championship, you do want kind of your best to keep it as clean as possible. And he just completely misjudged it. Kind of reminded me a little bit. I'm not going to mention Grosjean 2012, but Hulkenberg a couple of years ago in Spa, when he just braked way too late and went slamming into the back of everyone, that was in the dry. So I'll cut Bottas a little bit of slack, but still got it totally wrong compared to everyone else. And kind of thankfully for him, knocked out both Red Bull cars. So I don't think Mercedes were too upset, but still not the best from Bottas. And you're right. The fact that he's got a 5th place and Lance Stroll as well, who did his own bit of carnage in the midfield, I think that tells you kind of everything you know about or need to know about that first lap incident.
I think I missed that on Stroll. Did he get a 5th-place penalty as well?
I believe so, yeah. I thought they mentioned it right at the end of the race. I could be wrong then, but I've heard that going around.
Yeah, I missed stuff like that because I started setting the stream up. So I kind of got it on in the background. And I'm like, oh, shut up, Sky. Basically, to try to get... Yeah, I mean, that's all on Bottas for me. And you know, it is... I know I see a few people think it was deliberate from Mercedes. It gives me a chuckle. It's been so long since we've had a proper title fight between two different teams, really. I know Ferrari 2017 and 2018, sort of, but not really to this extent. So we've got this rivalry between the teams, so the fan base are kind of like, oh, we did that on purpose. Like, oh, grow up. No, we didn't. There's no way. Nobody could orchestrate that perfectly from Mercedes' point of view. Interesting you say about he could have run into Lewis Hamilton. I mean, according to Nico Rosberg, he likes to say that Toto Wolff is probably 50-50 on the drivers at the minute. If he goes into Hamilton, he might as well pack his bags and disappear straight away, hadn't he, really? But yeah, I'm joking about it, but it's 100% on Bottas that. It's a lot easier than other incidents we've seen of late to make that decision. Drivers absolutely livid with him. He said he will talk to all the drivers and whatnot when things have calmed down. I probably wouldn't approach them too much now, but a lot of angry drivers. That led to... the most bizarre thing I think I've seen since USA 2005. At the restart, because the race was red flagged, at the restart, everybody except Lewis Hamilton pitted on the way to the grid to change the dry tyres because the track was bone dry. And we had the 5 red lights, lights out and away we go, with 1 car on the grid. USA 2005 ain't got nothing on Hungary 2021. Unbelievable scenes, big mistake strategy-wise, really, from Mercedes. But as a lot of pundits keep saying, and people that know better than we do, Dan, that have driven these cars and been in these cars when these decisions are taken, the lead driver, it's difficult to be the one to make that call. So, big strategy mistake there, but that all just set us up so perfectly for what was to follow. I'll talk about those who were damaged in this a little bit later, particularly Max Verstappen, but I do want to kind of move on from that first corner incident. I don't think... I'll have a look at Super Chats. I'll have a look at what you're saying in chat. I don't think anybody's going to be saying that's anybody but Bottas's mistake, really. So we'll start with Charles Edward Cheese, who was straight in today. I think he's eager for this stream. Thank you so much once again, mate, for that incredible contribution. Says, I was angry with Alonso, as I am a Hamilton fanboy. Brought back bad historical memories. I nearly read that as hysterical memories then, but I can imagine. But then I thought, you know what? Alonso is showing his pedigree and being the blocking teammate I've wanted Bottas to be for so long. That said, who was the better teammate? Today, Mercedes might argue Bottas. I would say Fernando Alonso. We will get on to him, Charles. I think he was brilliant today. Great to see him back. And thank you so much for that contribution. Thank you as well to Raza, or Raz as I like to say. It says, rumours that Bottas has established a logistics business operating under the same Bottas freight trains, including we lock it up and send it with traditions. I love you lot. I really do. Charlotte says, thank you very much. Charlotte says, why did Giovinazzi get such a big penalty for speeding in the pit lane? 10 seconds stop go is excessive unless he went 200 miles per hour. We'll come to that in a moment, but I think he was well over the speed limit, to be fair. I call you Feely, but I think it's Field, is it? Says, it's Valtteri, the ultimate teammate ever. In all seriousness, he has helped them 4 constructors, and today takes out number 1 and number 3 in the Drivers' Championship. And thank you as well to Sage of Light. I believe this is the first single anthem podium since Japan 2016. There you go. I'll come to some more super chats in a bit. Anything you want to add on that first corner, Dan? I know there's a lot of frustration there from drivers. I know Leclerc looked devastated when he got out of the car. I mean, he did nothing wrong. Leclerc was staying on the inside, wasn't he, to keep out of the way, and then suddenly Stroll's like, coming through, straight into the side of him. Danny Rick got caught up in it. But I suppose, actually, I will say as well, just very quickly, we will talk about Verstappen properly later, but great effort again from Red Bull. Something about Red Bull and Hungary, they just seem to get the best out of their mechanics, don't they, when they need to repair a car at short notice.
Yeah, that was... I can't quite believe Verstappen actually finished today's race. The amount of damage he would have had on that car, you're right, they did a great job on recovering that, and Checo, bless him, well, I don't think there was any recovery in that one. I suppose the only thing I will add, just on that bizarre Hamilton start, the fact that there's that rule in place where the team can't talk to a driver when they're on a formation lap. I just wonder whether that caught out Lewis a little bit, because it's something at this exact venue last year, both Haas drivers, they were on the radio, do we go on the Inters, don't we? The team came back and they both got hit with, I think it was a 10-second penalty for both of them at the end of the race. So K-Mag just held on to a point. I've always got to bring in Haas somewhere, even on a crazy race like today. But I just wonder if Hamilton was kind of a bit nervous on that, and the fact he was leading, he took the gamble. And I mean, in all fairness, I'm sure we'll get onto it a little bit later on, they almost clawed it back. But yeah, at the time, very bizarre scenes, and it definitely set us up for a mega race.
Forgive me, I've not had a chance to go through the regulations for this one, but I think that the incident you're talking about with Haas last year was because it was the formation lap. I don't think the first lap to the grid after a red flag is classed as a formation lap. Because Ocon isn't under investigation for that, I should say. A lot of drivers are under investigation for things. Ocon is not under investigation for that. And he said to Sky in an interview afterwards that the team said to box. Now, that could mean, I could be so off with this, Dan, it's unreal, but that could mean the team said to him in the pits before he even left, we're going to box you at the end of the lap if you think it's safe to do so. But that could be the difference in that the formation lap is the lap before the race starts, isn't it, to form the grid, whereas after a red flag, it is a restart, not the start. Oh, that rhymed. I like that. Yeah. So I might be completely wrong there. That is my suspicion, but I will have a look around, and if I find anything, I'll put it on Twitter. Although there's people out there, journalists, all sorts, that will be getting to that one. I'm sure we'll get some Q&A later, and you can ask us loads of questions about Turn 1. I've got to talk about Esteban Ocon, Dan. Oh, I couldn't be happier for him. I'm so chuffed for him. Race winner, but not just... I know there'll be people that go, well, it's only because Mercedes screwed up and there was the crash at Turn 1. I know, I'm not going to use my line about being in the right place, blah, 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 but he soaked up that pressure so fantastically. He's not led a race since, I think Sky said, his GP3 days or something like that. So it's been so long, 2015, since he led a race like that and was going for a win. And he just was so mature, soaking up that pressure, putting the car exactly where it needed to be, defending so perfectly when he had to. That was such a mature drive from, in my opinion, a both underrated and overrated driver. Today deserves all the credit he's getting. Absolutely superb. Kind of gutted for Seb. It would have been nice for him to have got that win. His first year out of a Ferrari, and he picks up a victory, would be incredible. But all that experience Vettel has, he knows how to win races. He knows how to overtake to win races. Ocon kept him at bay. Superb. And I'd argue in the slower car as well. So great stuff. And I know it's hard to overtake at the Hungaroring, Dan. I get that. But I still think he was brilliant today, was Esteban. Faultless.
Yeah, it's pretty difficult, isn't it? We're not F1 drivers, but, we've played the game. We know it's difficult to overtake. Yeah, like you, I can only really just echo what you've just said, really, mate. That was such a lovely thing to see Esteban Ocon winning a race. And like you can easily point, if you want to be that guy, you can point at Mercedes making mistakes, the two Red Bulls going out, Alonso just being an absolute boss. That was awesome to see. But Esteban's drive himself was perfect. No mistakes. I mean, we didn't see a lot of it, but from what we did see, no lockups, soaking up that pressure with a 4-time world champion hunting you down. He knows how to win races. Seb gave it a bit of a dive bomb, didn't he? Also, that pit stop for Aston went slightly wrong. That may have cost Seb the win, but you can't fault Esteban, a driver who, like you say, sometimes is massively overrated, overhyped, sometimes under. And this year, had a great start to the season and has kind of dropped off a little bit of late. So for him and his confidence going into the rest of the year, I'm so excited to see what he can do. But also as a driver who's come from nowhere. He doesn't have rich parents. He didn't have plenty of backing coming up through the ranks. It was only Toto Wolff and eventually Mercedes that picked him up a little bit later on. And for his story, I can't wait to see Drive to Survive next season, that's for sure. But for him to finally get that win is just so lovely. I agree with you. I think the Aston was the quicker of the two today, and I think the fact that following is so difficult at this circuit and it's only really set to one you can overtake, I think that definitely helped Esteban today. But like you, I don't want to take anything away from that drive because he drove perfectly. And I would like to say if it was another circuit, he would have given it as good as he got today and would have fought back. He didn't need to. Inch perfect. Well done, Esteban Ocon.
Yeah, I mean, Drive to Survive next year, it's got to be at least 100 episodes long at this rate, hasn't it? I mean, the second half of the season's as dramatic and as exciting and unpredictable as the first half, then Good God. How are they condensing that into 10 episodes? They're going to struggle. Yeah, I just think it's a weird one, because we often say about Verstappen when he has a comfortable win, or Hamilton, it's difficult to know what to say other than just to praise Esteban today, because he did drive so brilliantly, and we'll get to driver of the day later, but he deserves a huge mention in there. So do about 10 other drivers, Dan. That's going to be a tough one to call later, but I just think, like you say, everything he's been through in his career as well. He was dropped for Lance Stroll, really, wasn't he, at Racing Point, when it became Racing Point. The Strolls got rid of him and he had to sit a season out, and we all kind of remember speculating a few times, Dan, is that it? Because F1's a fickle sport and they often forget about you when you've had a season out. So I thought, is that it for his career? And he's come back last season, did all right, came back this season, has been even better. And to get that win, it's just so lovely to see. It's up there with Gasly for me in terms of the emotion of it, if that makes sense. I think just so nice. And the first French winner in a French car since Alain Prost, which was like a million years ago. What feels like a million years ago. So absolutely phenomenal. Well done to Esteban. Thoroughly deserved win today. Yes, obviously the first corner helped a lot of people out today, but to keep Vettel at bay, I'd argue, had Hamilton cleared Alonso, which we'll talk about shortly, maybe we'd have been looking at second place for him today, but even then that would have still been a great result. But we're not, and he got the win, so well done to him, and well done to Seb as well. I mean, experience was the key today for Sebastian Vettel. He was frustrated though. He thought he had the faster car and felt he should have got past Alpine, or would have got past Alpine at potentially a track where you could overtake, and there were a couple of hairy moments. Nearly went into the back of him, didn't he, at one point, which made me sweat and think, oh, here we go, this is where it's all going to go wrong. But great drive from him as well, and some massive points for Aston Martin in the championship, even if it means that Alpine have actually pulled out a bit of a lead on them this weekend.
Yeah, and I'm sure when we get on for AlphaTauri as well, they had a great day, but they've lost out in the standings as well. So this weird midfield group have ended up all of them doing really well. But you're right, Seb, doing what Seb does, being that consistent driver that he's been throughout his career, apart from 2020, and securing that second place on a day where he didn't have the second best car. Like Esteban, say what you want about that first corner, they kept their nose clean, and that was so difficult to do today. They didn't really make too many mistakes in the race. I know Seb had a bit of a lockup a couple of times. I think that pit stop did cost him quite a bit today. I think it was a second extra than Esteban, and he had a great outlap, which was the fastest lap of the race at one stage. So I do think Seb was slightly unlucky not to have the victory today, but Seb's a driver who I think sees the bigger picture. I think if you'd have seen another driver, not going to mention names, in that same position, they may have gone for a move down the inside. That move Seb did go for when they were unlapping them or overtaking someone who was lapped. I think it may have been Mick Schumacher. Correct me if I'm wrong. They were lapping someone anyway when Seb went for a move. I think other drivers may have gone in a little too hot and there may have been contact. But either way, that's a huge result for him. He'll be, yes, annoyed he didn't get the victory, and the fact he could see it for the whole race, bless him, a second the whole way through. That would have been frustrating. But again, just like Esteban, I don't want to take away from Seb's drive because that was pretty much perfect from both of them.
Great shout from Jonty and a couple of people in chat just saying Olivier Panis won for Ligier at Monaco in 96, so I was wrong there. Yes, I always forget about Panis's win, even though he's Monaco Grand Prix winner, Olivier Panis. What I always call him, so I should really remember that. And he was driving Ligier, wasn't he? Became Prost the following year. So, yeah, I'm just checking Twitter to make sure we don't get any news on Ocon, Vettel and co. So, just to clear this up as best I can without, frankly, absolutely losing my shit about it. Sebastian Vettel is under investigation for wearing his We Racers One Pride t-shirt during the national anthem because the FIA don't want the national anthem politicised. You know, national anthems, some of the most political things on the planet. They don't want them politicised, but anyway. And Esteban Ocon is under investigation along with others as well. It's not just, I think there's some others as well under investigation for the pre-race procedure as We Racers One, that thing they do at the start. And Ocon's under investigation for failing to follow post-race procedures, which is kind of bang to rights on because he did go for another lap basically, didn't he? And then stopped sort of on the start finish straight, I think, or at the pit exit, and the team had to go fetch the car. So that's it's a bit, I'm not going to lie, I'm concerned for Esteban. I am concerned.
Really?
Yeah, I'm hoping it's just a reprimand and a fine. But they do get tend to get a little bit annoyed, don't they, the stewards, when a car that needs to go through scrutineering goes beyond that line. But we've seen before under red flags, for example, people get quite hefty penalties for not coming straight in the pits. I don't know what the rule is straight after the race, so I'm not sure. And it's different to like Jenson Button, for example, in Monaco in 2009. He didn't cross the line to go again. There was another one recently as well where somebody stopped. I think even today, Vettel stopped after the race, but he hadn't gone across the line again. So I'm a little bit concerned. More, if I'm honest, because you just never know what the bloody FIA are going to do from week to week. That it could be a fine. It could be that he's banished from Formula One for life. You never know with them. So I'm hoping it's just going to be a ticking off and a slap on the wrist. But at the same time, it depends what the rule book says. If the rule book says that's completely, you bang to rights, here's your penalty, they've got to give it, because you can't then not give it to Ocon, then give it to somebody who does that in a couple of years' time. So hopefully nothing. But you never know. As far as I understand as well, Chris Medland on Twitter was the one that was sort of talking about the Sebastian Vettel investigation. That's not likely to be a sporting penalty. That'll probably be a good old ticking off and a reprimand as well. So we'll keep an eye on it. Hopefully we'll hear something before the end of the stream. If not, keep an eye on social media, obviously retweet stuff, but I hope that it's just going to be a ticking off for Esteban. A few other drivers under investigation as well, but I can't remember the list. I think Carlos Sainz is one of them too. So but great from the top two today. Great battling as well. And maybe it's just me, but I quite, Verstappen versus Hamilton is fantastic. I love those two fighting. I mean, it's been brilliant this season, but it's always nice to see two different drivers at the front from midfield teams fighting and sort of giving everything for the win. But there's also that kind of double jeopardy for them as well, isn't there? Because if Vettel sends it on the inside and loses his front wing, that could be huge in the constructors, or Ocon gets it wrong and he ends up in the wall, then that could cost them huge points. And it's just that little bit of extra jeopardy there for me, which I quite enjoy. So lovely drive from both of them. Very well done. Very well deserved top two. And I think actually, a very well deserved third place for Lewis Hamilton today. That'll go down well, given my Britishness and my apparent bias. But I think, to everything that went wrong at the start, he kept himself out of trouble, came round to the grid after the restart on his own, which is still one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Like, I'm sort of stood there watching it going, oh, did he get a good start? I hope nobody ever takes him. And he just, down to turn one he goes, and on the wrong tyres, dry track, had to pit, fell to the back and came back through. Great strategy from Mercedes, kind of similar to what they tried in 2019 on Max Verstappen. And a great recovery to come back to third place. I know one of the fastest two cars on the grid, so he was always going to come back through to an extent, but some good overtaking. And I think if you'd have offered him third place after the first lap, he'd probably have ripped your hand off for that, Dan. But start of the race, he'll be a bit miffed with third place, wouldn't he? So probably mixed feelings. He was exhausted afterwards as well, wasn't he? Dehydrated. I think Mercedes have had to sit him down for a good half hour before he speaks to press, because he's knackered, which I'm not surprised at the way he was driving.
I think he's gone to the medical centre. I believe Mercedes put out a tweet about it. So I don't know if you want to do some digging on that. So fingers crossed he's all right, because he really looked, like you say, shattered after that one. But what a race he had. I mean, everything that could have gone wrong, all right for Lewis Hamilton, seemed to happen today. Like you say, that restart on his own, one of the most iconic, ludicrous things we're ever going to see in Formula One. And I think Mercedes will secretly know this is kind of one of those races that got away from them. That mistake to not bring in Lewis definitely cost them the victory today. I fully believe that. They would have been miles in the lead if Ocon and Seb were as far in front as they were. He was very, very close at the end, if not for that battle with Fernando Alonso, which I'm happy to say right now was the best battle of the season so far. Two of them with their history, with their experience, both world champions. Give me more of that every single day of the week. The respect was there. Hamilton wasn't too happy, but I'm sure now he's got back through, he will look back on that quite fondly, that awesome fight with Fernando Alonso. And even at the checkered flag was less than 3 seconds off the race victory. So there was definitely multiple points they could have won the race today. But also, if they hadn't made that decision to do the undercut really early on, or if they hadn't made that decision to do that next stop, which ended up being a 4-stop, or whatever it ended up being, technically 2-stop, but officially 4, they hadn't done that to go on to the mediums, they may have even been 5th or 6th today. So a bizarre race for Hamilton, but I think it's fair to say he gave it his best. And I think from Hamilton's side of things, it was a faultless drive, because he didn't get involved in turn 1. Yes, he was leading, but he didn't get involved at turn one. Most of the overtakes he made were pretty awesome, if you ask me. And strategy wasn't really his call. So I can't really fault him. Yes, you're right. There's going to be some people that get upset about that. But I do think he's in contention for driver of the day because out of all of the drivers out there, he had the most to do. And to come away with the podium, I think that's a really great job.
Emily just saying in chat that Hamilton didn't have a working drinks system, so he was dehydrated. Mercedes just confirming, Dan, that he did see the team doctor for fatigue and dizziness. Hamilton has since said, and this comes from Andrew Benson on Twitter, says, I'm okay, had really big dizziness and everything, got a bit blurry on the podium. I have been fighting all year really with the health, staying healthy after what happened at the end of last year, obviously referring to when he contracted COVID, and it's still a battle. So wish Lewis all the best, of course, but third place today, massive for the championship, takes the championship lead. We'll talk about Alonso shortly, Dan. I know, like me, you're probably chomping at the bit to get to that. But yeah, it's top of the championship now. Huge swing for one reason or another over the last two weekends. But yeah, I think I don't know what to say, really. We're going to have to talk about Alonso because it's the only way you can kind of sum up what lost that race in the end for Hamilton, wasn't it? Because he had it not in the bag, but, you know, like you say, just a few seconds behind, 2.7 behind Vettel at the end. Sorry, that's a lie, 2.7 off the lead at the end, so 0.8 behind Vettel. If he gets past Alonso a couple of laps earlier, he's on for the win there, isn't he? So, and I can't imagine Ocon and Vettel would have fought him quite as hard as Alonso did because, you know, second and third for Vettel and Ocon today would still have been a fantastic result for them. So, yeah, he needed to get past Alonso, and Alonso just was not having it. And I don't think... I mean, I loved afterwards, I caught Esteban Ocon kind of jumping to Alonso's defence. People, you know, talk to the media, people warning him that Alonso's quite toxic and causes problems. And today he played the team game absolutely perfectly. Fernando Alonso, number 2 driver. This doesn't feel right, but absolutely fantastic from him. And just held Lewis Hamilton off aggressively, but I would say fairly, for... I don't know how many laps it was, Dan. It was quite a few, wasn't it? Because it looked like Hamilton was inevitably going to catch the top 2, but he fought so hard, particularly on the exit of turn 2, pushing him wide. There were a couple of really spicy moments up at turn 4, which got me very, very excited. It's been so long since we've seen Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton go wheel to wheel like that, and it was brilliant. So, really, Ocon's driving was superb today, but you could argue that Alonso helped him win this race today. In fact, I don't think it's much of an argument, to be honest.
I was going to say, mate, I don't think there's much argument there at all. Fernando won the team the race today. And for all of those people at the start of the season that were doubting his comeback, I think he silenced more than a few of those today, because the fact that, you know, Ocon and Seb were in their own little race, and we'll get on to him a little bit later on, King Latifi, who was holding P3 for most of the race, kind of caused that bit of a backlog, really, didn't he, with those drivers, your Sainz's, Tsunoda's, your Gasly's, Verstappen's, and Alonso, all in that group. And for Fernando, just like Sainz, to go for the, well, my favourite overcut strategy, worked a treat today, but I think he was more just trying to keep after Vettel, wasn't he? Trying to make sure that Seb didn't do the undercut on Esteban. That worked a treat. And then to pit a little bit later than Sainz, to fend off Hamilton like he did. I'm going to run out of words. I'm going to run out of superlatives, because he was the only one that really put up any kind of defence except Mick Schumacher today. And for a driver who's, yes, he's 40 years old, he's got plenty of experience, but for someone who's not in the best car, who's definitely not in a car as good as a Mercedes, who's on fresh mediums, to defend like he did, to be so cunning, to know exactly where to put his car, to defend down both DRS zones, and like you say, up at turn 4, the top of the hill, definitely the most dangerous place to make an overtake. I winced more than a few times, I can tell you that much. I was screaming at the TV. So if my voice does go, blame it on Fernando Alonso today. He gave it everything. And I think it just makes it that extra bit nicer that Hamilton was just behind Ocon and Vettel, because, you know, it was Fernando that got the team the victory today. And the fact that he was just so happy. I know Crofty said that maybe Alonso would be a bit annoyed that Ocon won. I didn't get that at all. And the icing on the cake for me was when they went in tandem together, waving at each other on that final lap. That was so, so lovely to see. And Fernando waiting at the podium. That's why he's come back. Yes, he wants to win. Yes, he would have loved to be on the podium. But to be there for the team, you really can't ask for much more. And another one like half the grid that could be driver of the day today, the official driver of the day, and you can't really argue with it. That was the Fernando we know, and definitely the old Fernando is back.
And all this as a young driver. I mean, why wasn't he picked up earlier? Going right back to that that end of season young driver test last year. Breaking news from Autosport. Good news if you are fans of Vettel, Sainz, Stroll and Bottas. The FIA has given a reprimand to Vettel, Sainz, Stroll and Bottas for not removing their t-shirts before the Hungarian national anthem, so no sporting penalty for them. Sebastian Vettel keeps at least his second place. I'll keep an eye out for Ocon. I'm hoping it's just a reprimand again. That's going to upset a lot of people, except for Vettel fans. Obviously, he'll be pretty happy with that, I'd imagine. See Vettel take the win. But yes, I'll keep an eye on that. But nothing on Ocon. But those drivers have been reprimanded, so no further action really on that in terms of a sporting penalty. We'll do. It was just good. I don't know what I'm like you. I don't know what to say about Alonso because it was just so good to see him fighting towards the front. I'll tell you what I will say actually. Okay, for all the grief my predictions get. Okay. I predicted Hamilton for pole. People laughed at me, and I was right. I said Vettel was my one to watch. People laughed at me. I was right. And I said Alonso top 5. People laughed at me. I was right. Sure, there was chaos. And in a normal race, that would not have happened. But, you know, I don't often get things right, so I'm going to milk it a little bit. Let's do some super chats before I get on to, get too cocky about it. I've got quite a few coming in tonight, so thank you so much. To everybody for your contributions. Let's see if I can find where we were up to because I think I've run out of where we were. So we did Sage of Light. So Annette says, how would they have restarted the race if Lewis had gone into the pits too? I mean, I would assume the race procedure would have been the same. So it would have been us staring at an empty grid, 5 lights on and off they go. We'll talk about George Russell's cheeky pit stop, by the way, as well. That was quite funny. But yeah, I assume it would have just been the normal race procedure, but with no cars on the grid, which would have been equally as hilarious. To be fair, actually, I think one car on the grid is funnier than no cars. Just saying. Maybe it's just me. Field says, thank you very much for another contribution, mate. It says, Russell's message about prioritising Latifi was moment of the race for me. I am a bit bummed. It has been 2 Mercs and 2 Red Bull crashes in a row. Almost ruined the race. Does Bottas need a bigger penalty? Granted, I am a Max and Lando fan, so that stunk. I think 5 places. It's 3 places for blocking in qualifying, so it's a couple more than that. I'm kind of with Nico Rosberg. It does feel, given the number of races he ended and the chaos he caused, I mean, he didn't end Max Verstappen's race, but he as good as ended his race, didn't he? 1 point at the end. It could maybe have been a 10-place grid drop, but I can see why they went 5, because 10 is usually for, your big engine penalties and stuff like that. I think it's 5 per thing, but I think you can get 10 for some of those penalties. It's 3 for blocking in qualifying. So I sort of see where they're coming from with that, but it does feel like it could have been more. But it also feels, I see where they're coming from with that one. Raz says, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe drivers can communicate to team on pre-race formation lap, but the team cannot communicate back. You are spot on with that, Raz. So that's what caught Haas out last year. They responded to Magnussen and Grosjean. Had they not, they would have been fine. So that's absolutely true. Zach, Verstappen was too aggressive. Should have driven into the wall. Racing incident, of course. What did you think about the tactics employed by Hamilton in qualifying? Frustrating to be a Max fan lately. Thank you very much, Zach. He was within the rules. It was cheeky. I think actually his final outlap, Zach, was actually one of his quicker ones, funnily enough. But for him, he was trying to get the gap to Bottas, and then the Red Bulls were behind. Red Bull have said that they were fine with that. It was just a bit of gamesmanship. Perez doesn't blame Hamilton. I think it's something that I can understand the frustration, because it's going to feel, come the end of this weekend, to Red Bull fans and Max Verstappen fans, like the world is against them. Trust me, as a Schumacher fan, I've been there. It can get really frustrating, but sometimes just take a step back and look at this in a couple of days' time, a bit like after the Silverstone thing, and just sort of say, okay, cheeky, but completely within the regulations. So, but I get it, Zach. I've totally been there, mate. Not all that often with Michael Schumacher, I will say, but there were moments where it was frustrating. I mean, like, what the hell was Villeneuve doing, throwing one up the inside in Jerez? Field says FIA is so backwards and confused for calling Seb in my opinion. And FL Oligi says, I'm disappointed because being a Seb Vettel fan should have got the win. Thank you very much to you for your contributions. And thank you as well to Lee for a $500 donation, the second one tonight. I'm off on holiday. See ya. No, I'm joking. Thank you very much, mate. That is so generous. Charles Edward Cheese has a rival. The battle is on. We've got our own championship fight now, Dan. Says, I love F1. I love the F1 word. I fook with Sean, Aldas, John T, spelling. I especially love Chamber, Stuart Little. This 2021 season is epic. Seriously. Thank you so much, Lee. Lovely message as well. Yeah, we have a lot of fun on here. We do waffle a bit, don't we, Dan? But it's always good to talk to you guys after race. So thank you very much for your contribution there. That's incredibly generous. I never know what to say. I'm rubbish at this. I am absolutely rubbish at this. A couple more to get through. There's people now who are watching this later going, come on, Sean, get through your super chats. We've got loads tonight. Thank you very much to Emily. Says, if they take Ocon's win away, we riot. Absolutely. Harindi Singh says, Bottas received a 5-place grid drop, but Perez might need a new PU, which would cost him a 10-place drop should these rules be renegotiated in cost cap era, as the victim has much more to lose. Alonso is God. I think a few people saying that today. Good point on that. I think Christian Horner's having a moan and wants the FIA to foot the bill for some of these, which you can sort of understand. Annette, as for your predictions, even a broken click is right twice. Clock. I think that's supposed to be clock. I nearly read it as something else. Is right twice today. Thank you very much, Annette. I've said thank you as well to Lee. So thanks, everyone. I'll do some more super chats later. Let's roll on to... Where do we get to, Dan?
That's a great question. I suppose
we just finished
Alonso. Yeah, Alonso, I think, so we just finished.
I think Dan just fell asleep. He's still doing it. Still talking nonsense. Yes, we've just done Alonso, so I've not got anything to add on Fernando. Is there anything you want to add, Dan, while I very quickly take a drink, because I have no voice left?
I think we got there. And actually on the Bottas penalty, I just had a quick look. Hulkenberg, in that Spa crash I mentioned earlier, got a 10 place. So Bottas in wet conditions, 5. Yeah, it's a funny one because he's crashed out half the field, but I guess it's about right.
Difficult, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it has screwed other people's races up, ended it for them. It's potentially going to be a penalty for Perez, if not next race, then in the future, because he's got to have a unit earlier. Yeah. I get it. I get why people are confused by it. But it's just awkward to try and trying to explain what my thinking in my head is that 3 places for impeding in qualifying, so 5 is worse than that, which is fair. But does it warrant 10? Would you maybe say, starting from the back, would people go as far as to pit lane starting next time? But as you said about Hulkenberg, a few people I saw earlier talking about Grosjean, or at least a couple of people talking about Grosjean, saying that 2012, much bigger accident, and I'm sorry to say it, Dan, and I think even you will admit this, a very stupid thing that Grosjean did that day and the way he drove like that. But some people saying he was given a race ban, so 5-place grid drop. I know different times, wait, that's nearly a decade ago. Jesus. Isn't it a decade ago, isn't it? So I get why people are a bit confused by it, but we'll roll on from that. We'll do some more Q&A in a bit. Carlos Sainz, P4. I mean, another one that you could just sing the praises of all day quite easily, couldn't you? Fantastic driving today from him. Wasn't able to keep Lewis Hamilton behind at the end on those older tyres, but that's not a great surprise, really. He was frustrated a little bit over the radio, like, damn, sort of thing. But yeah, I think Sainz, out of all the drivers, and I've said this before, but out of all the drivers that have switched teams this season, he has absolutely blown me away. How quickly he's hopped in that Ferrari and got up to speed. And he's a great recovery for Ferrari this weekend with Leclerc DNFing in that first corner. So absolutely fantastic from Sainz today. And it was kind of nice as well. I mean, Alonso was only 6 tenths behind, and they were always kind of close to each other, weren't they, at points as they kind of came towards pit stops at the end of the race. So really nice to see them up there fighting and back. It's just great to see Sainz, Alonso, Vettel, Ocon in that top 5, top 6 and battling away together. So another driver who was pretty faultless. I'm trying to think if he made any errors today. Really, it's difficult to say much on some of these drivers, Dan, because they were just faultless, and they did ultimately. I mean, this is the argument for Ocon as well, isn't it? And the argument for Gasly and Tsunoda and the Williams boys. At the end of the day, in a race like this, you've just got to get it to the finish, and you get some big rewards, and that's exactly what they got today. I do feel like had Ferrari maybe try something different on strategy, a 2-stop perhaps, he might have forced Ocon and Vettel's hands, and that could have given him a shot at the win today, but he can't be too disappointed with 4th place, can he? I mean, great drive again, 12 points.
Well, I think after yesterday when he hit the wall in Q2,
Well,
which
yeah.
don't worry, I definitely, until you started talking about it then, I definitely forgot that after all the carnage today to go from 15th to
Yeah.
P4. Yeah, I think that's a great drive, and he's done it again. That's 3 races in a row. He's gone for the Racing Review special overcut, and it's worked a treat. And I think the fact that he really put his foot down with the team, saying, guys, I've got pace. I know if we can just go a bit longer, not get caught in traffic, we can overcut them. I think that saved his race today because there were so many drivers getting caught behind Latifi who, no fault of Latifi, that Williams car was just so slow. We've already mentioned it today. Overtaking here, absolute nightmare. So I think that Sainz was just a little bit more switched on at that stage of the race, did really help them. Maybe, to your point, if they could have done a 2-stop, they could have tried something a little bit different. But I think for Ferrari, considering yesterday, considering Leclerc, also kind of with an eye on McLaren, considering they didn't score today, they just wanted to be as clean as possible, get those points. And 4th place, I think he was annoyed, wasn't he, that he didn't get a podium. And just on that move with Hamilton, Sainz a little bit cheeky with that late little kink to the right. I'm not sure if that's being investigated at all because that was definitely on the edge for me. Apart from that, I think Sainz has done exactly what he needed to do today. And again, damage limitation from yesterday. If you'd have told him this morning 4th place, he would have snapped your arm off because that is a great drive.
Was that jink naughty or was that jinx he was going to go around the back marker and Hamilton had kind of maybe misjudged how far over he needed to go? Didn't
I
expect
think
him
naughty.
to make it. You think naughty?
I do,
Ooh.
just because of how late he did it. Because Hamilton had just started to make a move, and then it was quite a jink. If it was more gradual, I'm cool with it. But the fact it was quite a sudden little jerk to the right and then back straight again, I think that's what makes it a bit on the edge for me. I'm cool with it. I don't want there to be a penalty, but I do think it was on the edge.
Yeah, I need to watch that back again. My instinct when I was watching that, even after the replay, was that Sainz has come to go past the Alfa Romeo, I think it was, and Hamilton had already gone, and that kind of is where it came close to contact. So, I mean, great reactions from Hamilton to avoid that, because that could have been race ending for both of them, or puncture and front wing loss anyway. So, yeah, let me know what you're thinking, chat. Let me know. That was an interesting one. Interesting moment. I get it. I get what you're saying, Dan. It was cheeky. If it's deliberate, it's very cheeky. It could have been a big accident, but yeah, interesting one for Sainz. But like you said, I mean, was it 14th or 15th to P4 by turn 1?
No, because I think it went Hamilton, Ocon, Vettel, Latifi, Tsunoda, Sainz, I think. So I think he overcut Tsunoda and Latifi.
Didn't he? Yeah. I mean, Tsunoda was 4th at one point, wasn't he? And we had Latifi running 3rd.
Exactly. What a day.
Took a photo of my TV. I was like, could you imagine walking in and turning the TV on to this after 6 laps? And it was Ocon, Vettel, Latifi, and Tsunoda. You wouldn't know what had gone on, would you? But I mean, superb from Sainz. I'll let you have that on the naughty.
Well, it wasn't as bad as Grosjean in Silverstone last year, so I don't want to be too extreme.
You hate Grosjean today, Dan. What's the matter with you? You used to be such a fanboy.
It's okay. He's doing ovals soon, so I'm a happy boy with Grosjean.
We talked about Fernando. I've not got anything else to add on Sainz, but I'm sure if anybody will do some Q&A later and we can go over some stuff if we find anything. But again, nice little fight with Hamilton, as brief as it was. Actually, I'll tell you what I will talk about Sainz. His strategy call. Yeah, forgot about that, didn't you, Dan? His strategy call. Team wanted to pit him, and he was like, no, be patient, we stay out. And as it turned out, probably actually a pretty spot-on call for him. So it always amazes me. It always has. Michael Schumacher used to do it all the time. Alain Prost was known as a professor for it. How they can be driving at such speeds with so much going on, especially now with all the knobs and that on the steering wheel and the different buttons they've got to press. How they can do all that and still be thinking, right, well, this is the strategy we need to be doing at this point. I think brilliant from Sainz. So I just think he's coming on leaps and bounds, and I'm so pleased he's doing well in that Ferrari. And like as you kind of touched on there, Dan, it moves us within 3 points now of McLaren in the constructors, so they're back in that fight for 3rd place. A 3rd place that a lot of people didn't really think they'd be in for this season. So yeah, fantastic. We'll just have a quick look in chat and see if anyone's got anything on Sainz before I roll on to Gasly and Tsunoda, who will also be very, very happy, I'm sure, with today's performances. Nothing that I can't see anything off the top, well, not off the top of my head. I can't see anything at one quick glance. So let's talk about Sainz has the same points as Charles. That's a good point from Andres. Apology if I butchered that one. Yeah, good point. Is it 80 apiece? Those two?
It is.
So, I mean, I'll ask you very quickly, Dan, a super quick answer if you could. I know we like to waffle, mate, but did you expect that to come to the summer break and Sainz be tied with Leclerc on points?
No, I definitely didn't expect either of them to be anywhere near 80 points either. So, like you mentioned a minute ago, I think the way Sainz has come to Ferrari and just being himself, continued his driving almost exactly the same as he was at McLaren. I would argue even a step up than he was at McLaren. Been super impressed with him this year, and like you're mentioning, I did not expect him to be joint with Leclerc at this point.
Pierre Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda, AlphaTauri. We'll go team by team now that we're kind of at that point. I think both of them were great today. I think they did probably the maximum they could with their cars. They were kind of on their own, weren't they, in the end? I think Latifi was 2.1 behind Tsunoda, a little bit closer than maybe I thought there. Gasly 47 seconds behind Alonso, so they were kind of in their own race. I know made the extra stop at the end to go for fastest lap, Pierre Gasly, but that's some good points for AlphaTauri. Like you said earlier, though, Dan, unfortunately for them, I'd argue their biggest rival in the championship, Alpine, at the moment, picked up first and fifth. So it's a great result for AlphaTauri, but it's not really worked out too well in the championship for them. But hey, there could be big points coming the end of the year. So really good drive. Gasly was let through by Tsunoda at one stage in the race, so team orders did come into play there. I think Yuki was a bit annoyed, wasn't he, over team radio? I think he was having another one of his outbursts about the dirty air. Dirty air. Oh, I'm off now. The dirty air behind Gasly, and I think telling him essentially to just get a bloody move on. So yeah, I mean, I don't really recall seeing too much of Gasly and Tsunoda other than when they were kind of the next target for the drivers coming back through the field. But 6th and 7th, and actually for Yuki, I've got to say, I kind of touched on this last week as well, or last race reaction. He just seems to be, I know he had his crash in practice because he's got to have one, but the way he's kind of settling a little bit now and seems to be apart again from his team radio, I'm giving these examples and then trying to say that he's calming down, but the way he's just kind of getting it together now on a Sunday, I think is important for him going forward. So yeah, I'm impressed with how Yuki's kind of turning his season around, and actually just on the championship as it crops up on screen, 2 points now behind Aston Martin or AlphaTauri. So it actually worked out pretty okay for him. They're still 7th, but yeah. That was it, Dan. I don't know what else to say, mate.
That's all right. Well,
I've lost where I was.
Well, with Yuki, just to build on what you were saying, it's the first time he's got back-to-back points in his career, which going into the summer break, I think that's pretty massive. Yes, he had his crash in practice, and people will definitely point at that and saying that needs to stop, and it definitely does. But the fact out of all the drivers, Tsunoda kept his nose clean on lap 1. He probably would be not one of the drivers I thought that would have happened. And to fight with Lewis Hamilton in the way that he did, he couldn't fend it off that well. And the fact he was in an AlphaTauri, Hamilton was on fresh rubber. But at turn 4, side to side with a 7-time world champion, fair play Yuki Tsunoda, and also fair play just for backing out. It's the kind of thing that we see with some rookies sometimes. I'm going to be careful what I say considering Silverstone, but sometimes drivers like to go at the inside last moment and get all the glory. It doesn't work out. Tsunoda just in that moment thought, you know what? I'm going to back off here. Hamilton's the quicker guy. I need points today. And that's exactly what he's done. He's picked up points. Like you mentioned, got a little bit hot-headed with Gasly at one stage. And if I'm fully honest, mate, I don't quite understand how Tsunoda let through Gasly, and then they were kind of 2 seconds between them for about 3 or 4 laps when Tsunoda got annoyed that Gasly wasn't moving. And I have no idea what Gasly then did, but he somehow got a free pit stop over Yuki Tsunoda. So I have no idea what he decided to have for breakfast, but he turned it up a gear, found that extra stop, got fastest lap, which I don't know if that was Christian Horner giving AlphaTauri a little ring to get that one set up so Mercedes don't get a point. But even still, like you say, it's a weird day for AlphaTauri because I believe they were 5th in the constructors heading into this weekend. 6th and 7th, they probably would have said before going into the race, that's a great result. And so to come away behind their 2 main rivals, not brilliant. But I do think for Gasly, where he was after that first lap incident, I think he was 11th, fighting with Verstappen, Schumacher and Hamilton, wasn't he? So to get all the way up to 6th, I think, to be fair to him, was not a bad drive. And Yuki, I think, doing exactly what he needed to do today. Probably would have loved to have been in front of his teammate again for 2 weekends in a row, but even still, keeping his nose clean today. That was the mission. Mission achieved.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that the two rivals outscored them today, but, Gasly and Tsunoda, they can only do what they can do, can't they? That sounds so obvious, but they've still got 6th and 7th today. That's probably where the car is on race pace, really. Gasly again, top 6. So, yeah, I think they'll be very happy with that. But again, long way to go this season. And, the championship, if you're a Verstappen fan, might feel like it's slipping away. We've still got 12 races, potentially, between the end of August and the middle of December almost. So there's a lot of racing still to go. We've seen the championship swing twice, haven't we? Lewis Hamilton with a pretty solid start to the season. Verstappen came back. Red Bull came back very strong, and then it kind of swung Silverstone back Mercedes' way again for one reason or another, and it's carried on again this weekend. And then it might do the same in Belgium, but then the Netherlands or Italy onwards, it could be Red Bull that it swings back. That's how hopefully this season is going to be. So a long way to go, and I hope it works out that for AlphaTauri. But 7th in the constructors is where I'd expect them to be. And that's where they are at the minute. So I think they're, 64 points in total after 11 races. Big points today. Good stuff. It just needs to, what Tsunoda needs to do is just hook up a full weekend again. Just have a couple of, maybe even 2 or 3 weekends where nothing really happens, but he gets himself either in the points or on the fringes of points. So no practice crashes, no screaming over the radio or whatever. I don't know. But I'm actually quite surprised that, no, I'm not actually. I was going to say I was quite surprised they didn't swap the drivers back over, but then Gasly couldn't have gone for that fastest lap, could he? So that point could be big for them. So no, ignore that one. Before we get on to Williams, I do just want to say, because I forgot to say it earlier, please do drop a like on the stream. I like to get to 500 for Charles Edward Cheese when he donates his $500. I'm going to set an incredibly bold target that I don't think will hit. We've had 2 $500 donations this evening. If we could get to somewhere near 1,000 likes, 2,189 watching, that would be amazing. I know that's like asking 50% people who want you to hit like, and that's probably not going to happen. But if you could, that'd be massively appreciated. Once again, for Lee and for Charles, thank you very much to them for their contributions, and to everybody who's contributed tonight. We'll do some more super chats when we've done the rest of the top 10, but we've got to move on, Dan. Williams. Oh, I'm so happy. I'm happy for Ocon. I'm happy for Vettel. I'm happy to see Alonso's back. Wow. 8th and 9th. Nicholas Latifi, as I said earlier, was running in a podium position at one point. Kept it very, very tidy today. 8th place. 9th for George Russell. Finally scores points. Still gets beaten by his teammate. I mean, it just doesn't work for him, does it? He doesn't get it all his own way. But he today said over Team Radio, as somebody who put in the super chat said, he said over Team Radio, I'll paraphrase a little bit, basically, sacrifice my race, I don't care, sacrifice my race with the undercut if it helps Nicholas Latifi out, or Nicky as he called him, which was really, really cool. So absolutely great teamwork from them. Great teamwork from George Russell, and fantastic driving from both of them. I mean, they had the pace today. I mean, I know Verstappen had a damaged car, but Russell was 1.1 up the road from him, 20 seconds clear of Raikkonen. Or 21 seconds clear of Raikkonen. Latifi was only 2.1 behind Tsunoda. Fantastic to see Williams up there. And for the third time in this stream, when you get a race like this, for teams like Williams and Haas, you've just got to get it to the finish because you could get a fantastic result. That's exactly what they've done. And I think both of them, for the first half of this season, particularly George Russell, but I think Latifi, he's not been amazing, but I think gets a little bit too much stick. They both thoroughly deserve the points they got today for the whole first half of the season, because I think they've both been fantastic. And that's moved Williams into 8th in the constructors ahead of Alfa Romeo. That could be massive for that team, Dan. I am so happy, not just to see them on sort of points on the board now, but a good handful, a good 6 points, and still half a season to go.
It's so nice, isn't it? It's one of the best feelings. And I kind of feel for Ocon, because people are going to be still focusing on Williams. There's so many nice stories everywhere today. And in all fairness to Williams, they had a stinker yesterday. This was the one track where they were keeping their fingers crossed they could get through to Q2, and were kind of hoping Q3. So the fact that they were both out in Q1, Russell for the first time, Latifi said after quali that he had engine cuts all the way through the lap. They were gutted yesterday. And so to turn it around like they did, you said Latifi was in the podium for a couple of laps. Mate, that was half the race. I'm probably imagining that. It felt like half the race. Latifi was P3, and I couldn't be happier for him. A guy that Gets a lot of stick for his background and what he brings to the team, and people say he's not good enough. We've always defended him, and I'm glad we have, because he put a lot of people in their place today, was keeping his pace with most of that midfield. Yes, he had Sonoda behind, and he wasn't really going to make too much of a bold move at that stage of the Grand Prix, but still, he held on to third place, which a car that's probably the second worst on the grid, the worst some weekends, vice versa with Haas, second worst, we'll say, for argument's sake. The fact that he was running in third is bonkers. The fact that he was keeping it is bonkers. And the fact they've scored points is just awesome. I love George Russell's team radio, one of the moments of the weekend. And the fact that he tried to overtake everyone in the pit lane at the very start of the restart was also brilliant. Because if that had paid off, if he'd have just even stayed there and taken a 5-second penalty, tinfoil hat time, I wonder if he would have been even further up in the points, because Latifi was holding up most of the field, and that's kind of why Ocon and Seb were kind of in their own little world. So I mean, it's stupid, but I do wonder what would have happened if they let Russell go through, because in terms of regulations, you will definitely tell me why I'm wrong in a second, so I'm looking forward to that. I don't quite understand why that was wrong. I don't quite get, because people do that in quali, people do that in the races sometimes, fighting on the exit of the pit lane. I don't quite see what was wrong with that.
I'll answer that in a second, mate. We've got some breaking news on Esteban Ocon.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's not good news. If you're a Sebastian Vettel fan, oh, you bastard. Esteban Ocon has received a reprimand. For the incident at the end of the race where he went past the start-finish line again. So he keeps his win. Esteban Ocon is officially a race winner, assuming, of course, that the car clears scrutiny and all that business, so it's still technically provisional, but he is a race winner. Reprimand for that incident. Sorry to everyone who's now going to tell me to go and do one. But yes, Ocon's fine. He's got the win. Sebastian Vettel second, Lewis Hamilton third. All investigations, I think, are in. I think. All I'm going to get now is loads of stuff that's like held for review, because you're all calling me a bastard, which I completely understand and completely sympathise with, because I am. But yeah, just to your point, Dan, so that's good news. That's the good news out of the way. But just to your point, mate, I don't know is the answer.
Oh, okay.
If I'm being honest, I don't actually know what the rule, because like George Russell said, you can overtake in the pit lane if a car's slow or if there's an incident or anything like that. So you can overtake in the pit lane, which is what he did. But I think it may well be, again, speculation. It may well be the FIA have said, look, that's a bit out of order, George. You shouldn't be doing that. Give the positions back. We'll leave it at that. I don't know. I'd have to look into that. I didn't have time to really go through regs again, like I say.
Right.
So much happened. It was worth a go, though. I mean, if he'd have done that, was he not effectively P2? If he'd have done
behind
that?
Hamilton. So they've been leading.
If he'd done that, and then the race stewards went, no, that's fine. He's P2. He might not finish P2, but he's P2 on the road. So I understand why he went for it. But I'm kind of glad the stewards kind of understood that nobody really understood the regulation at that point and let him get away with it. But just give the positions back. But still, it's worth a go. It's worth a go. Great drive from both of them today. And I'm like you. I do defend Latifi a lot. I don't think he's a world beater. I think if you listed the drivers on the grid, he's not going to be anywhere near the top. But I think he's better than perhaps I was expecting him to be in Formula One. I think he's got a long way to come. I think Russell's in a different league, but ultimately, if there's no more points between now and the end of the season, Russell, who I think is in a different league, is a couple of points worse off than Latifi is. So there you go. That's just the way it is. But Russell's done himself no harm this weekend for his future, by the way, with either Williams or Mercedes. Williams would love to keep him, I'm sure, but played the team game, was quite clear over team radio. He's willing to play the team game, drove extremely well as he's continued to do, 2 points. And Latifi probably done himself the world of good as well for that seat potentially next year. So very happy for Williams. It's just nice to see. And do you know what? I want Haas to score points as well. If we could have every team scoring points this season, that would be incredible. So really, really happy for Williams today. I can't really think of much, again, that Latifi did right. Well, not right, but wrong. I don't think there's a huge standout moment. He was P3. He did a great job for Ocon and Vettel in keeping everyone behind, didn't he? And did some great defensive driving, if you want to call it that, for the first stint of the race, and fell back as you'd expect him to do in that Williams. But I think to be up in P3 for so long and to drive that well deserves a lot of credit. And I think absolutely huge credit to him. I don't think he gets enough, and that's why I'm just going to keep saying Latifi's great for a whole 30 seconds. Why not? But yeah, really, really pleased for Williams. 6 points in one race weekend. When was the last time? Here's one for somebody in chat. I know there are people in chat that love to give me their stats. So when was the last time Williams scored that many points in one single race? Because they didn't score anything last year, did they? They scored 1 point with Kubica in Germany 2019. So we're at least going back to 2018. But the last time they scored that many points in one race is a good question. So we'll see. 2017 Brazil Massa P7. Good shout from Will. Monza 2018.
I think they both scored Sorokin and Stroll on that day.
Was that Monza 2018?
Yeah.
I am gonna just now go and have a look.
I can't believe you've done this. But even still, it's been a long, long time, hasn't it? So deserved today. And like you said, Latifi, bless him, the amount of stick he gets, faultless today. And even George Russell at the end, I know Max Verstappen's car was damaged, but fending off Max, that must have been a lovely thing for him to be doing with those last few laps of the race. I think he was only 2 seconds off Latifi at the checkered flag. So, yeah, you can't really fault anything with Williams today. A perfect day for where they're concerned.
Yeah, well, the Monza 2018 one I've got is 3 points, 9th and 10th. So I'm not sure. So I'll leave that with chat. If any of you spot anything, Dan, or anybody else spots anything and wants to at me or whatever, to let me know, that'd be great. But it's still fantastic for them and well deserved as well. Max Verstappen P10, last of the top 10. I tried to look at the positives earlier, Dan, by saying, that point, it's only a point. But if he wins the championship by the end of the season by a single point, that's what could have done it. It's in a championship fight that could be as tight as this is promising to be. That could be so important. But I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but from his point of view, third on the grid, everything that's happened the last 2 races, that's just as good as nothing, isn't it, to him? I feel like, we talk about Ocon for driver of the day. We'll do this later, but Vettel and Hamilton and Sainz and Alonso, I think Verstappen deserves a nod, quite frankly. You might think I'm mad. 10th place in that Red Bull. It was half a Red Bull. Exaggeration, I know. But he had floor damage, which they tried to repair, and I think they got most of it done, but there was still floor damage. He had a barge board missing. The car was not driving properly. So to get a point on the board, I think he can be not happy with, but maybe not quite as down as maybe. I don't know. It's hard, isn't it? Because he's lost his championship lead. He was up there in second place going into what we were up for until Bottas had brain fade. We were up for Hamilton versus Verstappen for the win in a damp start in Hungary, given everything that happened. It was going to be brilliant, and it just all got taken away. But I don't know what to say, mate. I mean, it's a point, but it's nothing to him, is it, at the minute? He's so frustrated. I know he said afterwards, again, taken out by Mercedes. I think that's just a statement of fact rather than trying to start anything. But yeah, I don't know. I really don't. I don't know what to say. I think to get 10th, he can be happy in that regard because it would have been nothing, but it's kind of still nothing, isn't it, to him?
Yeah, well, here's your positive. I mean, Red Bull scored more points this weekend than last weekend, so
there is that, yeah.
It's an improvement for him. You're right. I think Max is within a shout of driver of the day. I mean, I think it's very telling that he couldn't overtake Mick Schumacher for as long as he did, and not without trying. That car was just an absolute wreck after turn 1. I mentioned it earlier. I don't really know how he kept on going, and those Red Bull mechanics must have worked wonders during that 15-minute break. And the fact he's come away with the point, you're right. Now it looks stupid. People will look at that and say, well, it's only a point. Hamilton's got 3rd place. Hamilton's leading the standings. But we've been there when the championship has been decided with 1 point. It's not been for a long time, but it definitely has happened more than once in my lifetime and yours. So, yeah, I think it's looking forward to Spa for them. They will know, I think anyway, they've got the better car on paper for the next few races. Mercedes, the upgrades the last couple of weekends, they've been closer, but they will know it's pretty much even Stevens. The gap is 6 points in the drivers, 10 in the constructors. I believe that's not really a fat lot. That's one weekend where it can swing right back the other way. They've got every right to be annoyed that they've lost their over 30-point lead in both championships, but luck sometimes is swings and roundabouts. And I hope for Red Bull, that they've used up their bad luck the last couple of weekends, and I definitely hope it can't get much worse than that for them. They've got a great car. They've got 2 drivers that know what they're doing. I think the summer break, a bit of a reset, could do them the world of good.
You're wrong.
Oh, what am I wrong on? Probably
Max
a lot.
Verstappen picked up 3 points at Silverstone.
I am wrong. Very, very true. I'll take that one back. Well, there's your positive gone then. No,
that's the positive. Well done, chat. You've ruined it. You've ruined the night. Bye. It's all over. No, yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say. We talked about the first corner incident. We all seem to agree. I've not seen anybody really in chat disagree. We've all agreed that's on Bottas. Penalty is thoroughly deserved for that one for Belgium. He's just in the wrong place. Well, no, he was in the right place at the wrong time, if that makes sense. In that he was P2 from P3, so he kind of got where he needed to, got rid of Bottas, but then it all fell apart by the time he got to that first corner. So he's annoyed, and you can and that's putting it mildly. And I get that. And Christian Horner is, like I say, apparently he's sort of hinting that they want some more money from the FIA for crash damage, which it seems odd to me that a team wouldn't factor that into any kind of cost cap for the season. I don't know, but then they probably weren't expecting the hefty shunts they've had this year. So there you go. But we'll see what happens with that. I don't think an awful lot, to be honest. I'd maybe argue, I'm ready to annoy some people here, but I'd maybe argue spending nearly 100 grand on Alex Albon in a 2-year-old Red Bull, trying to replicate the lines of Lewis Hamilton under different conditions at Cops, was probably money that could have been better spent. It doesn't come anywhere near the crash damage, of course, but I wouldn't moan about your cost cap if you then go and do that. So maybe just me. But for Max, yeah, I think you're right, Dan. A reset over the summer break, clear his head, kind of get these last 2 races as far to the back of the mind as he possibly can, and just get focused now on the rest of the season. Because I still think Red Bull have marginally the better car, and it is only marginally. And it could be one of those things, actually, that changes from race weekend to race weekend. It's that close. Spa could be good for them. I think Zandvoort, I can't wait for the atmosphere there. I think it's going to be amazing, and I think that's going to G him up as well. Could be good at Monza. There's some tracks coming up that could suit them very, very nicely. The problem is, though, and I'll be honest, in terms of the championship fight, this just feels to me, obviously different reasons that we've got to the point we're at, but it just feels to me a little bit like every other year since 2017 that Hamilton's been challenged for the title, and then it all swings, and then he bogs off in the second half of the season and cruises it. No hate on Hamilton. No hate on Mercedes. I hope he doesn't, because I want this to go down to the wire, because I would love for this era of F1 Aero to finish with a title fight in first of all, give us something to get excited about for Abu Dhabi, but give us that title fight in Abu Dhabi that we just so crave, and I want it to stay doing this, but it just, do you get what I mean, Dan? It just feels like we've had Hungary, Hamilton's taken the championship lead, and I just feel like we've been here before.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean, because I think I've found multiple times this season people said, oh, it's completely different this year. Max so much closer than Seb was in 17 and 18. But actually, when we got to the summer break, it was Seb that was leading. So I know how you feel, but I do think Max is ready for this one. I think Red Bull, like I say, I'd like to think they've got their bad luck out of the way these last couple of weekends. And before that, they were having a period of dominance this season. Was it 4 wins in a row, 5 wins in a row at one stage? So they'll be back. They will be fighting for victories for the rest of the season. And I'm going to be optimistic for a change. I think this is going all the way down to the wire.
I should say, because a couple of people corrected me in the chat, it's not come across very well. I was being, I guess, facetious rather than sarcastic about the cost cap thing. It doesn't, because it was an older car, that money doesn't come out of their cost cap, I don't believe. I think you're right on that, but I was being facetious and I wasn't being, which is weird for me. I'm like the king of sarcasm. I try to make it as obvious. It's why a face cam would be ideal, because then you'll see me pulling the faces I pull, which are generally not for anybody to need to see. But yeah, so I know that I was just to clear that up straight away, frankly, I was being a dick. But anyway, so yeah, we've only got 4 drivers to do. Wow, we've only got 4 drivers left to do, Dan. We'll fly through them quickly, and then we'll do a few more Super Chats, Q&A. Just a reminder, 640-something likes, so we can get a few more. That'd be fantastic. We had nearly it's $1,000 in donations, plus everything else that's come in, or contributions that have come in. So if we get to 1,000 likes, that'd be amazing. It's unlikely, but unlikely. See what I did, Dan? Yeah. No, I'll go.
Okay.
Kimi Räikkönen, P11 today. Antonio Giovinazzi, P14. Bit of a sloppy day for Alfa Romeo in a day where you needed to keep your nose clean and get yourself to the finish to pick up some big points. I feel like they've really missed out today. Kimi, I think, did well in the end to finish in 11th place, but big penalties for both of them. 10 second, I think it was a stop-go, was it? For Giovinazzi for speeding in the pit lane. I think he was something like, I can't remember the number, I wrote it down and I haven't got it. It was like something like 20-something kilometers an hour over the speed limit in the pit lane. So that's penalty anyway, but that's a hefty one. I think it was either 10-second time or 10-second stop go. Kimi Räikkönen's was a 10-second time penalty for
bumping out Mazepin.
That was it, for the most ridiculous unsafe release I've seen in a long time. I mean, both penalties absolutely nailed on, and I'm going to keep saying nailed because that's all Nico Rosberg has said in commentary all weekend is nailed it. So there you go. But I think, yeah, absolutely penalties, and that was it. One, I mean, you can't come back from that easily, can you? I mean, Kimi was 20 seconds off 10th place. Giovinazzi was 1 second behind Schumacher. What was that? So about 10 seconds off Ricciardo. So he could have been 12th today, but if it was a stop go, obviously not. Just really frustrating today, and kind of looking at it, like I say, from the perspective of those teams that are lower down, and every point's going to be so big this season, and especially with Williams scoring so highly, they could have had some massive points today, Alfa Romeo, and they kind of shot themselves in the foot. But really, the big one to talk about there is Kimi Räikkönen on Mazepin. I mean, I don't want to go in too hard on the team and certainly not Kimi. It's not Kimi's fault. But I don't want to go in too hard on the team because the pit lane was chaos, wasn't it? Absolute chaos. So I can understand how a miscommunication or something like that can happen in there. But at the same time, it's not Paul Mazepin's fault that he comes to pull into his pit box and bang, hit by an Alfa Romeo and ruins his race. So yeah, I don't know. Really, like I said, I don't want to go too hard on the team, Dan, if you see what I mean. But at the same time, you kind of have to because that's their mistake.
Well, yeah, and go hard on the team because it's the second time they've done it this weekend because they did it in practice, didn't they?
Oh,
with Gio when he hit Stroll.
Yeah.
I don't know quite what they're doing this weekend. I hope they understand what an unsafe release is. But you're right, poor Mazepin. This could have been a massive day for Haas. They could have scored points if Schumacher had a second rear gunner there to try and help out with a bit of strategy going on at the back of the field, though Schumacher definitely gave as good as he got today. I'm looking forward to talking about that in a moment's time. But yeah, ridiculous from Alfa Romeo. They'll be hit with the fine. I don't think Kimi will get any kind of penalty for next weekend because he had a 10-second stop go like Gio, didn't he? But I can only really echo what you just said there, mate. A miserable day for them considering what could have been. And also, don't forget with Gio, I can't believe I'm about to say this, they tried the mediums at the start of the race.
What was that about? Yeah. What on earth?
Can you believe that? When Bottas and Stroll couldn't stop for turn one on the Inters, what on earth Gio thought he was going to do on the mediums? I have no idea. When he came in, I think most people just assumed he was going for the wets. So the fact he went for the dries, certainly a brave boy. And in all fairness to Alfa Romeo, that was the formation lap. So Gio made the call and they had to go with it. That's the kind of risk that's brave enough that if it did pay off, fair play's the hero. But it was just the opposite today. And like you say, the main thing, the one thing people needed to do today was keep their noses clean. And the Alpha boys didn't do it. And they paid the price in the drivers and the constructors' stand-ins.
Yeah. I mean, nothing to lose except his front wheel. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I can't quite understand what... Because when they first went off the grid, I think I tweeted that if you're a Williams or a Haas, you know, is this worth a gamble? Is this worth sticking the slicks on because it looks drier than it actually was? And then as soon as the cars got going, you're like, no, that's intermediates all day long. And the rain kind of came down, not heavier, but it kept coming. So the track got wetter. So when Gio pitted, I was like, is he drunk? What's he doing? It didn't make any sense to me at all. I was like, oh, that is so bizarre. But again, I guess if you don't try, you don't know, do you? And nobody else tried and they all knew. So I don't know. But hey, look, you know, he ended up P14. He finished the race. Yes, he had a penalty. He probably would have been around there anyway. So in the end, he lost nothing really from the weekend, did he? If 20 cars had finished, he'd have been somewhere between 11th and probably 16th or something down there. So yeah, just a weird call. And then obviously then you add that to Mercedes' strategy to put just Hamilton on the grid while everyone else pitted. You're like, what are people doing? Apparently Toto Wolff has defended that, by the way, just super quickly, saying that it was the right decision to do, to send Hamilton round, because they would have ended up P6 had they pitted him. But I'm not a team boss. I'm not a strategy dude. But that's their official title. But I'd argue 6th place is better than 16th. Maybe just me. I don't know. I've not read the full article. I just read the headline, which you should never do. I'm fully aware you should never do that. But Toto Wolff saying it was the right call because Hamilton would have ended up 6th. So I don't know. Again, hindsight. Benefit of hindsight on these streams. That's the trouble, isn't it? Daniel Ricciardo, P12. Only McLaren to finish the race. He was another one like Verstappen. His race was kind of done, wasn't it, in that first corner incident? I think they repaired some stuff on the car, but he had damage as well. That affected him in the race. No, I will admit, I know they had damaged cars, but it was a nice little battle between Max Verstappen and Daniel Ricciardo. But I think a bit of a rubbish weekend again from Danny Rick. I mean, 11th place in qualifying isn't the end of the world because you get the free choice of tyre. So that's a good thing. But it just never really came together for him at all, did it? So P12, all things considered, Dan, is that a decent result given what happened at turn 1? Or it's hard, isn't it? It's really, for him and Verstappen, it's really hard.
I think what's probably the worst thing about this weekend for Daniel is he avoided that first crash. The fact he got through and probably for about 10 seconds thought, oh my God, I can see Hamilton and then it's going to be me. And then out of nowhere, Stroll and Leclerc come spearing in and pretty much race over from there. You're right. It's such a tricky one because he did pretty much all he could do in that car on a track that's difficult to overtake with damage. He was in the points or on the edges for most of the race. He's come away with none. It's probably what you would have expected. But you're right. It's just it's another race where I find it really hard to place Daniel Ricciardo. It's an okay quali, kind of needs to do better. It's only the second time this season he's beaten his teammate by default this time. I guess that's a tiny positive. But I feel even more so when I mentioned it for Red Bull earlier, I think this is a really good time for Ricciardo just to have a break, have these 4 weekends off, reset for Spa. A track he's won at. Of course, he's won here before as well, but just have that complete reset. Plenty of time on the simulator. Try F1 2021 on the Xbox as well, just to learn that McLaren a little bit more. And then hopefully when we get to Spa, when we get onto Monza, he's that little bit closer to Lando. You're right. I think starting 11th wouldn't have been the end of the world. So as soon as it was Inter's, he was probably a little bit annoyed. So I don't know. Middle of the road weekend for Daniel, if not a little bit disappointing, all things considered.
I'll be honest. I think you're generous saying he had an okay qualifying. I think it was a shocker.
Well, I wouldn't go shocker just because I like 11th and 12th place. I think that's a good option to have, especially at a track. Strategy. Yeah, especially at a track like Hungary and Monaco where you can't overtake. I didn't think that was the end of the world. But you're right, when you compare it to Norris and the fact that in Q2 Norris was second, that's not a great quali.
One more driver. I'm not going to talk anymore about Mazepin, Norris, Perez, Stroll, Leclerc and Bottas. They all got covered in that first corner, really. And obviously Mazepin with the incident with Mick Schumacher. Not Mick Schumacher at all. I'm lying. With Kimi Räikkönen, but Mick Schumacher, all right, 13th place, no points. How racy was he today? That's a guy who has had very little on-track racing to do and battling to do outside of his teammate for the last 10 races. He was going for that today. It was great to see him. I know, again, Ricciardo, Verstappen, damaged cars, but it was great to see him saying, no, you're not coming through, Max, you're not coming through, Luke. I'm going to battle you. I'm going to give you a hard time. And that was great. And I think Mick Schumacher is another one who, again, not an amazing result, but the way he raced today, I think he gets a bit of a nod for driver of the day. I think he was superb, but it was just great to see how much he wanted to battle, even in a car that's absolutely dreadful. It was contact, I think, with Max at one point. I mean, mate, how many times do we see through pit stops and things, a Red Bull or somebody come across a Haas who's out of position and they're just like, oh, well, I'll not fight too hard and let him go. Mick wasn't having that today. He was fighting today because he knew that couple more retirements or 3 more retirements up the road and he's got a shot at points here if he keeps these guys behind. So I think, in fact, actually, if he kept Verstappen behind, it could have been a point today. So I totally get why we're scrapping that. Really great to see. And I think the first time we've really seen Mick be able to do that against other cars that aren't Mazepin, really, isn't it? So I hope we get to see a lot more of that over the coming races, maybe, but certainly sort of in the coming seasons.
Yeah, it's just awesome to see what he can do. It's the first time we've seen a Haas on TV this year, especially in the Grand Prix. And the fact he was doing it with Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen and the AlphaTauris, that's brilliant. He really gave them a run for their money today. And I don't think you can ask for much more. He knows he's in the slowest car on the grid. He knows that even if he tries his very best, the likelihood is they're going to get past at some stage. And even with that little bit of contact with Max, he did not give up. And again, I really don't think you can ask for much more from Mick today. I think what's criminal is that's not even his best result this season, which I feel is so unfair because he got 12th in Baku. I just feel like he deserves so much more with that race today. But he's shown the world what he can do. He's shown Ferrari that he's capable in Formula One. He's shown Haas that he made the right decision signing him. I think that's by far the best drive from a Haas driver since Germany last year. No bias at all. I really can't ask for much more from Mick today. Like you mentioned, I think he's in the mix for driver of the day. Really, really impressive from him.
Yeah, I think so. I genuinely do. Would have been nice for him to get a point today, wouldn't it? Nothing against any other driver that did score points. Would have been good to see him get a point, and then we've got every team with a point on the board. But yeah, it does. I do wonder as well where Mazepin might have been without that incident with Raikkonen. Some might argue probably 15th, but you know, he could have been up there with his teammate. They could have helped each other out with some strategy calls, like Russell was offering for Latifi. Could have made things really interesting. But yeah, I think we're pretty much wrapped up there. Like I say, just really hoping that we're going to get a little bit more from Mick. Like, not, I don't mean like he hasn't shown that he's any good. I mean, he had his crash in practice, but I mean, I just hope we get to see a bit more of him, because I feel like when we do these race reactions, we get to Haas in particular and Alfa Romeo as well at times, and I just don't feel like we really see anything of them other than when they're being lapped, bless them. So I hope we get to see more of Mick Schumacher this season. That'd be absolutely fantastic. You're getting muted. There we go. Yes. So, I do a little pause here, by the way, because then I can put the timestamp in later. It's easier. Driver of the day. Fernando Alonso took the official driver of the day. It was a close poll, actually, I think, in the end. Ocon was up there too. Let me know in chat, one surname, who was your driver of the day. Good luck picking. Dan, who are you going for, mate? And I'll try not to pick the same person. I know who I want to go for. I'll try not to pick the same person. But yeah, I think this is a tough call this week.
It's the opposite to normal because there's too many to choose from today. And don't worry, chat. I'm not going with Raikkonen this time around. We're all good. We're safe. God, I'll let you run down most of them because there is so many to pick from. I'm going to go with Esteban Ocon. I know Fernando Alonso not gifted him the win, but really gave him a helping hand today. But I just think that's one of the most lovely storylines of the season. Where he's came from, the season he's had, the drive he put on today was faultless. I don't think you can ask much more from Esteban. And to withstand the pressure of a 4-time world champion, 1 second behind you for the whole race, also knowing Lewis Hamilton is hunting you down, again, I just don't think you can ask for much more. So it's, yeah, Esteban Ocon for me for driver of the day.
I think that's a fair shout. I don't think many will disagree with that, Dan. I really don't. I think absolutely superb, as I said earlier. Just other people you could give a shout to. I think Sebastian Vettel, P2 today, kept the pressure on, drove really, really well. Lewis Hamilton to kind of bounce back to get third and come through the field. Carlos Sainz was great. The AlphaTauris, maybe not. I don't know, but they both have very good races. Latifi was great. Russell was really good. But my driver of the day, it's not even, I don't even need to give this any thought. It has to be Valtteri Bottas.
Wow. Yeah. You can't argue with that.
He gave us all the drama. No. I don't often go with the official one, but I have to go with Alonso. Because whilst Ocon drove superbly well, I still can't shake the feeling that Alonso won that race for Alpine. That sounds really harsh on Esteban. Yeah. It really does. But Ocon, brilliant. Did everything he had to do. But if Alonso hadn't fought so hard against Hamilton and Hamilton had got through, we saw at the end, Hamilton 8 tenths behind Vettel, 2.7 off the lead. On those fresh tyres, I think he'd have taken the win. So I have to give it to Alonso. But I'm trying so hard not to take anything away from Ocon because he was still brilliant. But it's got to be Alonso for me. I can't look past that. There's so many great drivers out there, or great drives out there today. it's nice to be able to look at it and go, yeah, but I could have picked them or them, rather than like, oh, I'm going to pick somebody because they waved or something. It's just nice to have a genuine reason to pick someone. So I'm going to go Alonso. See what you guys say. But again, any Ocon fans, I'll repeat it because I know what the internet can be like. I'll repeat it again. I'm taking nothing away from his drive today. And second place, by the way, would still have been fantastic, but I just think Alonso won that for the team today. So yes, let's have a look at. We'll go as high as I can scroll, which apparently is there. Emily. I just said Emily. There you go. Has gone with Ocon. Warren M. Good afternoon, mate. Says Russell. Halo Gamer says Alonso. Individual 1 says Fernando. Southern says Batass. Red Raven says Alonso. And he said Red Raven there as well. What's up with me? Casey says Ocon. Alexander says Alonso. Alvin says Alonso as well. Fantaboy 15 says Latifi. I think that's a fair shout. Vinny S says Seb. Mick or Alonso says Nazar. Yeah, I think Mick, not for me overall, but I think he definitely could be in that argument because I think he did very, very well today. Nikki and Real Lil Crouton says Alonso as well. Rusty Gusty says Alonso. Gaming with Steve says Seb. Latifi or Alonso for Isaac. Felix says Alonso. Let's scroll down a bit further. Panos, Sam, Corolla say Alonso. J. James says Latifi. Just a Human says Ocon. Harry Eat Singh says Alonso. A lot of love for Alonso. Joel's gone with Alonso as well. Lil C goes for Mick. Michael goes for Latifi. Late Night Sun says Alonso. Jamie's gone with Vettel. Scroll down a bit further. Eric Teddy's gone with Grosjean. There you go, Dan. Nice Person says Bottas. Clearly. Absolutely. Safe Plum says Ocon as well. Beastmaster says Hamilton. Chazza says Hamilton as well. Halo Gamer says Alonso. D says Alonso. I'll tell you what we'll do then. So just a few more saying Ocon. Samash, Brad and Silvio all say Ocon. Vettel for RE. And I thought I saw another one there, but obviously not. And Alonso, a lot of Alonso love. No great surprises at all. I think I've read some of these already and people are popping them in again, so I'll try not to repeat. But yeah, lots in there. PW says Max, just looking for some that maybe serious ones. Obviously, we've got Maldonado's and all that lot in here as usual, and Van Dorn's, but just the serious ones. If it's anything nobody's really mentioned. Gaming with Steve, I think I read that one. Steve says Seb. Yeah. Russell for Alfie. I think P9. See, if he'd have been P9 on a normal race weekend, I think everybody picking Russell. But because he was behind his teammate, even though he played a great game today, you sort of go, yeah, but, you know. But I think Russell's a good shout, absolutely. And Luca, good doer, does say Jack Aitken. Now, if you haven't caught the news, unfortunately and tragically, a race marshal lost their life at Brands Hatch yesterday. And obviously, I'm sure Dan's exactly the same. My thoughts, my condolences with the Marshall's family and friends. Absolutely horrible accident. I caught the clip. I hate catching those clips, but caught the accident. Absolutely horrific. So, of course, thoughts with their family and friends. And it's just a reminder that motor racing is incredibly dangerous to everybody involved in it. And Marshalls, you know, it's not a cliche. It sounds like it, but it's not. They are, without them, racing doesn't happen. They are volunteers as well. Absolutely. Yeah, let's get some orange love hearts in the chat for the Marshals. So thank you to every single Marshal. If you are a Marshal and you're listening, thank you so much to all of you for allowing us fans to sit here and watch the racing we love, because you do such an incredible job and you volunteer to do that job. Absolutely amazing. And maybe it's time for a conversation one day about whether Marshals should be employed rather than volunteering, because you're putting your life on the line. So thank you so much to Marshals, and once again, thoughts and condolences with the family of the Marshal that lost their life at Brands Hatch yesterday. Also, get well soon to Jack Aitken. He's got a broken collarbone, and I think he's broken some vertebra as well, hasn't he, Dan? So quite a horrible crash at Spa for Jack Aitken. So get well soon to Jack Aitken and all the drivers that are involved in that, and all of the incidents this weekend. Get well soon to them. And again, I'll say it again, thoughts and condolences to the family of the Marshal. It's not a nice reminder, Dan, but it is a reminder that motorsport is dangerous, and without these Marshals, we don't get racing.
Yeah, and it's, you know, like the drivers, like everyone in Formula One, people are doing it for our entertainment. People are risking their lives for us. And so, I hope people are spamming orange hearts in the chat. I can't see, but I'm sure you are. Yeah, it's another reminder of how cruel this sport can be. And just like you, mate, condolences to everyone involved, and get well soon, Jack, and everyone involved at the crash at Spa.
Yeah. Not much to add to that. Thank you to everyone that's popping the orange hearts in the chat. It kind of took over social media last night, didn't it? Everyone was doing that, which was lovely to see. And just, I think, a reminder as well that as motorsport fans, we are one big community. We have our disagreements. I don't know if you notice. We have our disagreements from time to time, and we all do fall out. But we are, we do come together as a community. Well, almost the definition of community, isn't it? It's people coming together with a common interest, and that's what we have, and that's motorsport. And we'll argue, we'll fall out. I'm saying nice things now, but you'll all be cursing me at Spa because I'll have said something, and I'll be cursing you back. That's just the way it is. But we are motorsport fans, and that's just a reminder that sometimes things are much bigger than the rivalries out there and the falling out. So yeah, I'm gonna go some Q&A. I'll do the super chats. I don't know if you notice, I struggle with stuff like this so much. So much I'd love to say, but I'm not going to today. So let's have a look at what you guys are saying. So some more super chats. Thank you to everyone who's contributed today. Absolutely fantastic. Massively appreciated. Emily's giving a £2 biscuit fund for the channel mods. Need to get them some biscuits over the summer break. Catchinero F1, thank you very much. Says petition to freeze the Constructors' Championship at 8th place down until season's end. Williams gang. I could think of a good few hundred people down at Williams that might sign that one for you, mate. Arian Gomez says, great race. What a beautiful moment after the race with Alonso and Ocon. Vettel support for LGBTQ+, and Russell's emotions in helping Williams get duo points finish. Absolutely, mate. Thank you very much for your contribution there. Raz, Red Bull Racing had a tangible lead pre-Silverstone. Need to shift mentality from championship to win to championship to lose. Cannot continue super aggressively because it causes higher likelihood of damage stroke DNF. Field says, I just saw this on Twitter. Bottas has essentially caused Perez a 10th-place grid penalty, breaking his engine. Seems bizarre his penalty is less than that. I think a lot of people will agree with you on that one, mate. Aiden says, do you think Red Bull was using the older spec car considering all and the only upgrade destroyed with the Silverstone crash? I might be wrong. Again, I'm going off sort of memory here, but I think it's because you're limited for the testing you can do in season with your current car. So I think it's I'm sure it's a 2-year-old car that you can use for filming days, and even then they're restricted. So they've effectively used a filming day to put that together. So it's not that the car was in bits and they couldn't use it. It was just that they can't run that car during testing outside of Pirelli tyre testing. That's right, isn't it, Dan? I'm not making that up.
I believe so, yeah. I'll have to go with you on that one, mate. Not what you wanted to hear.
Raz, thank you very much again, mate. It says Russell's emotion post-race interview shows he's a champion in the making. This result means so much more to him, so much to him for the team. What a lad. And Harinder Yeet Singh says, what are your summer break plans, team? Good question. Very good question. If you have got any questions, by the way, please pop them in chat. We'll answer a few before we wrap up today. Thank you very much. Oh, there's a twist. Hang on. Thank you very much for all your contributions today. Dan, I'm going to let you answer that. What are your plans for the summer break, mate? If you could talk for about 60 seconds, that would be fantastic.
60 seconds. I'll see what I can do, guys. I think first things first for the summer break is just watch that race over and over and over. I still can't believe we've just seen that. To be honest, I don't really have any plans. So filling this 60 seconds is going to be a pain. But I think work, that's very boring answer. It will be work more than 2 days a week. No one wants that. Prepare for next year. I'm planning on doing some teacher training. So that'll be something I'm looking at doing over the course of the summer. And just watching stuff from this season, watching highlights. I can't believe the year we've had so far. Preparing videos for the second half of the season will be a big focus for me, and I'm sure yourself, buddy. And apart from that, just a quiet one, really, which is boring. We're still in a funny old world, so there's no nice and luxurious trips to anywhere, really. And I hope that's 60 seconds. Because my initial answer, mate, if I'm fully honest, is I've got nothing planned. So,
that's lovely. I thought you were like, I might have a shower, get something to eat.
tell you what, it was getting to that stage. I was really scraping the bottom of the barrel there.
I'm going to say potentially bad news for Sebastian Vettel fans. And I think the potential is a stretch. I think from what I understand of the regulations, this is pretty much a slam dunk. Sebastian Vettel is likely to lose second place as 1 litre of fuel was not available in his car at the end of the race. According to Chris Medland on Twitter, FIA could only use 0.3 litres, or only take, 0.3 litres out of Vettel's car, and you need a litre. It's been referred to the stewards. Chris Medland does also note that it could be more because Russell did stop after the flag as well. So if that's true, that the stewards only got 0.3 litres, I'm afraid, I believe that's disqualification. I don't think that's a time penalty. I believe that's disqualification. I could open the regulations now, but it'll take me a week to get through all the points to read it out. But I think that is, if that's the case, Vettel disqualified, which would be a point for Kimi Räikkönen, another couple of points for Williams, assuming they keep their positions. Sainz on the podium, and Lewis Hamilton second place.
Wow, that would be another twist I am not prepared for.
Do you want me to have a look for this regulation? See if I can find it.
You can if you want. Just give me a better question this time.
I'll tell you what. I can't think of a question. What? Somebody give me questions to ask Dan that will keep him busy for 3 hours while I scroll through. List all your primary school teachers.
Well, I've got something I can ramble on about, mate. If you want
Go
to
on, then. Go on.
Okay, chat. You're gonna have to bear with me here, but we're talking gigantic tinfoil hat time. So Sean is gonna have to allow me. He's got to make the decision now if he wants me to say this or not. But I want to know what you guys think. So let me know your answers in chat. What does today's win mean for Ocon to Mercedes in the future? Because he is still managed by Toto Wolff. I don't think he's in the running for next year. I think most of us can agree, win today or not, it's going to be between George and Valtteri. And I think today, in all fairness, doesn't do Valtteri much favours anyway. But I'm talking for when Hamilton leaves. If Hamilton leaves, if Russell isn't good enough, I don't think that's going to be the case. If Hamilton retires, is Ocon a good shout? I know a lot of people like to say Gasly, maybe Max in the future, that could be a good one, but I don't know. If Ocon's got this new contract at Alpine for, I believe it was 3 years, contracts don't mean a fat lot in Formula One. They can come apart at any stage, buyout clauses, performance clauses. I don't know. It's something I was just giving a little thought about after the race, because he's been solid this year, Ocon. He had a great start to the year, a couple of races, not so good. And then, of course, today, that only increases his stock. And I think Ocon is that kind of driver that, I don't know, really goes off a bit of momentum. And I think a big win like this, he'll go into Spa, a circuit where, of course, a couple of years ago, he had a horrendous weekend after what happened with Antoine Hubert. But like with Gasly, we've seen that's given him a bit of energy around that place. And I just wonder if Ocon can get this rest of the season together. I don't know. Just something I was thinking about. And Sean wanting to go and do some investigating just gave me a good opportunity to spitball it and see what you guys think. And I can see in the chat a couple of people, the Formula One new squad, yes, Ocon and Russell will probably be 2025. I'm cool with that. I think Vettel to Merck, Cyber Trader. I think Vettel will be gone by 2025, or if that's when we're talking. I'm more, depends when Hamilton retires, doesn't it? I'm more thinking 23, probably 2023, 2024. This could be Hamilton's last contract. I don't know. There's going to be a lot of changes by then. We may even see Frederick Vesti and Kimi, whatever his name is, the other Mercedes youngsters come through, and Nick De Vries might be making a return if you want to believe some of the rumours at the moment. I don't know. Hopefully that's filled your time, mate. Please let me know if it hasn't. But I can see Ocon going to Merck in the future, which I didn't a few races ago.
I can't find... Cause I always struggle to find the list of penalties for different things. But I can tell you that he if it is the case, he will be in breach of Article 6.6.2 of the technical regulations, which say competitors must ensure that 1.0 litre sample of fuel may be taken from the car at any time during the event. After a practice session, if the car has not been driven back to the pits under its own power, it will be required to supply the above mentioned sample plus the amount of fuel that would have been consumed to the drive back to the pits. The additional amount of fuel will be determined by the FIA, so I can't see anything on what the penalty would be. I am fairly sure that's probably disqualification. Usually when you are in breach of scrutineering, it's as hefty as they can go because your car is deemed illegal, isn't it? So I can't find what the penalty will be, but that is the article he's in breach of, 6.6.2 of the technical regulations. So the sporting regulations, if you've never checked them out, they're at least 99 pages long with all the appendixes, and there's 56 articles to them, so I can't get through that to find out what the penalty would be. So if anybody spots anything on Twitter or anything like that might be interested while we do Q&A, then that's what we'll do. But basically, he's in breach of 6.6.2. I kind of want to turn it into a tune somehow, but I'm not going to sing. I've already done that with Stewards' Dirty Air in this stream. But yeah, so that's the situation as things stand. Sebastian Vettel referred to the stewards. In fact, I didn't actually check if, and I'll answer your question actually, by the way, Dan, that you're asking other people. I think Esteban Ocon will be considered as potentially, assuming George Russell gets it, George Russell's teammate once Lewis Hamilton retires. That doesn't mean he will get it. It doesn't mean that Lewis Hamilton will ever retire. I mean, Kimi Räikkönen's still going, so he may never retire. But I think Ocon's a great shout if they want somebody to go alongside George Russell, who, because he's improving, isn't he, Ocon? So that's so the official line. Well, I could have just done this. I've just gone scrolling through the regulations like a moron, and I could have just read the press release or the stewards release. After the race, it was checked on car number 5 whether a 1.0 litre sample of fuel could be taken from the car. It was possible to only take 0.3 litres following the procedures laid out in Article 6.6.4 of the 2021 Formula One technical regulations. Therefore, I am referring this matter to the stewards for their consideration, as this is not in compliance with Article 6.6.2 of the technical regulations. That's Joe Bauer. This one might roll a little bit, so it won't be. It's unlikely to be decided whilst we're on stream, but I'll keep an eye out. So let's do a couple of questions then. I think I saw another super chat come in from Emily. Thank you very much. Says, if they take Seb's second away, we riot. Absolutely disgraceful. Yeah, we'll take some questions. And then we'll wrap up. So make sure you follow me over on Twitter, and I'll drop retweets and stuff when things get decided. Charles says George to disqualify too since he stops as well. That's a point that Chris Medland made, that there could be more because George did stop on track afterwards. So that's one to keep an eye on. There's nothing at the moment on the official feed from the FIA in their little thing on their website. So if anything crops up before we finish, then I will let you know. What about Leclerc's brother? Says individual one. I've been quite impressed by Arthur Leclerc this year, actually. I think he's done all right. I know he had that little moment in Austria, didn't he? Quite a hefty incident, but not necessarily his fault. But I think I've not been following F2 as closely as normal years and F3, but I think he's doing all right out there. Is he the younger Leclerc? He must be, yeah.
Did he win this morning? I'm checking now. That's horrendous.
He got pole.
I didn't check F3. And yeah, I know he got
pole,
pole.
Wasn't he? I thought Hauger won because it finished on the safety car.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I'm just looking now.
So yeah, I think that's. Yeah. PKM says disqualification is the official penalty in the past and also F2. Yeah, that's my. Yeah, I agree. I think that's where we are, unfortunately. 700 likes, says Charles under Edward Cheese. So he got his 500. That's all he's after. Give him my likes. Yes, that's still fantastic. So thank you to everyone who has liked the stream. I don't think we'll get to 1,000, but massively appreciated anyway. What about Ocon radio communication during the formation lap? That's from James Buckingham. I said that I was, because Dan, we were discussing this, weren't we? And I said that I didn't think it was a penalty or anything like that because I thought that the formation lap after the red flag wasn't the same as the initial formation lap, if that makes sense. I was on, again, I need to pay him. I was on Chris Medland's Twitter looking for this thing for Seb Vettel, and he's actually tweeted to say that radio comms are allowed following the red flag restart on that lap to the grid because it's not the formation lap. So I knew in the back of my mind, I knew that from somewhere. That there's the formation lap, which is the actual formation lap, and then there's the lap to the grid, a red flag restart, so that doesn't count. So you can communicate, which is fascinating. Because it's technically a formation lap, but it's not a formation. What's the difference between them? Do you know what I mean, Dan? That's just so weird to me because it's a restart. But I guess before we had these standing restarts, after a red flag, it would be safety car, wouldn't it? And you can do things under the safety car. So I suppose that's the principle they're thinking of. That lap to the grid is effectively a safety car lap, and then you stop and off you go again, maybe. I don't know. Joe Hart says, sorry I'm late. Have you discussed Sebastian's possible penalty for wearing a T-shirt? Thanks. We did. He's been cleared of that one, Joe. Unfortunately, though, mate, he's now under investigation again for not being able to supply the correct amount of fuel following the race to the FIA for scrutineering, so he could be in a big bit of trouble there, but nothing official at the moment on what's going to happen there. Has anyone officially gotten a penalty? Nothing yet, Commander Carrots. Nothing yet. I feel like we're going to have a very disappointing evening if you are a Sebastian Vettel fan, and potentially if you're a George Russell fan. Nothing official on that one yet either. But all penalties have been cleared. Ronnie was asking for a recap on them ones. So no further action on Esteban Ocon. Reprimand on Ocon. Reprimand for Sainz, for Vettel, for... Who's car 18, Dan?
Stroll.
For Stroll, thank you. And for Valtteri Bottas, obviously got a 5-place grid drop. 5-place grid drop as well for Stroll. Ocon also cleared. I think I've said that one. And we're just waiting now on what's going to happen with Sebastian Vettel's under investigation. And then the summons has come in. So he has gone to the stewards then. So alleged breach of Article 6.6.2 of the F1 technical regulations. Could not supply the correct fuel sample. So Sebastian Vettel is now... The summons is there. He's been summoned by the stewards. So, yes. Sorry, Seb fans. I made a joke early, didn't I, about it was bad news for Seb fans, and it turned out it is. Sorry about that one. Couple more questions. What was the time on Red Bull's pit stop? Good question from Dennis, actually, that one. Thank you very much, mate. Ted Kravitz reckons that's a record pit stop for 2021 and possibly a record pit stop overall. The official timing put it up at 1.8 seconds, and Sky timed it at 1.93, which I think was the previous record. So if it is 1.8 seconds, then it is a record for this season. So there you go. Exactly, PKM. Rules are rules. It's the way it is, unfortunately. Definitely. Joe Hart, thank you, Sean. SEAM, mate. I spell it the weird way. Scene rather than Sean. See, have you seen any questions, Dan, that you fancy having a pop at? I keep scrolling through.
No, mate. I turned the stream off because I started to lag a little bit.
Rude.
I did drop a like, though. So, chat, if you've not done that yet, get on it.
Yeah. Why do they need an entire litre, says Findlay? I don't know, is the answer, to be honest, mate. It's just what it says in the regs. I don't know. That's one for somebody who's a bit more... I'll ask Stuart at some point. see if he can do it. Give you an answer on that at some point, but yeah, sorry, I can't answer that one. So, and actually on the pit stops, very good point to make is that could be the last one that's that quick, because we've got those new procedures that have to be followed, haven't we, Dan, from Spa onwards? So that's great news. Do you know, it does. I'm going to say it because it does annoy me. I know that, you know, safety and we want to make sure wheels are on and that, but we don't. It's not like every single team has a loose wheel every single weekend, is it? We don't see it all the time. What gets me is F1 is the pinnacle of motorsport and likes to bill itself that way, but then it's saying to its pit crews, just slow down a bit. No, go quicker. I want sub 2 second pit stops because that's what Formula One is. It's about speed. It's about right on the limit. And if you make a mistake and your wheel isn't on properly, you're going to suffer that. But I guess then you can flip that around, Dan, very easily and say, but then is it fair, going back to what we've seen this weekend, that if that wheel falls off and it goes straight and it hits somebody, it's a safety issue, isn't it? So I can kind of see... there are other reasons behind it, but I can kind of see why they're looking at making those changes. But it does feel a bit anti-F1 to be slowing pit stops down. Even if it is just... I don't think it's going to be massive. I think we are talking hundredths of a second, but it still seems weird.
Yeah, and again, without sounding naive, it's not like we get them all that often these days. You're right. If it saves one, that's ideal. But yeah, I'm with you. It does seem a bit anti-F1, but I suppose does that kind of give teams and, well, not drivers, teams, more incentive to find new ways of going quicker? I don't know.
I mean, they're not as I don't know the specifics, but they're not as strict as they were going to be, are they? They've relaxed some of it a little bit, but yeah. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stay live for another 7 minutes, which takes us to 7:30, so that's nearly 2 hours, or it is exactly 2 hours. So we'll stay live for another few minutes, just in case anything comes in. I would be very surprised if we hear anything on Sebastian Vettel in the next 7 minutes, but I'll just give it every opportunity I can for tonight. I've got to stop at some point. But yeah, just this could be one, because he's got to get there first. Then they've got to put their argument across, and I don't think it'll be much of an argument if that's what they've pulled out the car, but more really to see if George Russell or anybody else gets called to the stewards. So I'll keep an eye on that one. Whose wheel did fall off? I didn't see it. There wasn't one this weekend, was there? I'm trying to think of the last one where a wheel was loose.
I really can't remember. Not one flying off anyway. I'm sure there's been loose ones, probably even this season, but I can't remember one flying off.
Part of Portlock says, is it anti-F1 to slow things down? Groove tyres, skinnier wings, chopped floors, banning F-ducts, mass dampers, etc. You're spot on, mate. And I am of the opinion, I'm not old, I'm 35, but, you know, I've been watching for nearly 3 decades. But I am of the opinion that I've said it so many times, I'm of Ron Dennis's opinion. Teams should rise to the technical challenge. F1 should be about being the best. And if somebody comes up with something brilliant that other teams don't like DAS, for example, I don't think that should have been banned. I think the other teams should have had to rise to the technical challenge, as Ron Dennis said back in 98, when talking about that extra brake pedal that McLaren had. That's what I think they should do, because that's what Formula One is to me. It's about the pinnacle of engineering, about the pinnacle of racing. And I think that if a team comes up with a brilliant idea that gains them a couple of tenths of a second a lap, not that DAS did, but you know what I mean, come up with something that's that they found a loophole in the regulations. So long as it's safe, I don't see why that can't stay. I appreciate that it's expensive to copy things other people do, but Racing Point, as they were, essentially copied an entire Mercedes. So I don't see why Red Bull couldn't come up with DAS, or somebody else couldn't, or couldn't have seen. That's just how I see it. That is just how I see it. I know there are some people who don't agree, who think the costs need to come down and it should be managed and it should be closer to a spec series. And there are people that think like that, and that's absolutely their right. But for me, I want to see the best drivers in the best cars with the best engineers doing the best they can, not strangled by this what is currently, for me, Dan, a really over-regulated sport. Grandad's gone again. Great.
I can't really add much more, to be honest, mate. Yeah, I'm pretty much with you, especially on the DAS thing. I mean, there's more things, you know, that when I was a kid, I didn't really pick up on, so I'll leave that to you. But things like that, DAS, I mean, it's not like it was dangerous. It's not like it gave them this huge 4-second advantage where they were winning every single race by a country mile. So, yeah, it's something I'm not a huge fan of, and it's something it's why I'm kind of glad Ross Brawn is a big part of Formula One's leadership these days, because I think with these new regulations, they're going to be a bit more, well, I hope they will be a bit more lenient with things like that. And if teams can innovate, if they can excel and push the limits like they've never done before, I hope they allow that a bit more than they have in the past.
Thank you to Jamie for a contribution. Says, happy summer break, Sean. I must say I really enjoyed Nico's commentary, but Crofty was really bad today. Showed no passion for the Ocon-Vettel fight. Crofty did seem quiet today. I must admit, I wondered that. But see, I love Martin Brundle. But I think if Martin Brundle retired tomorrow, I think Nico Rosberg is the one that Sky needs to go get, because I think his insight today was so great. And even little things, Dan, like talking us through the pit stop, what the driver's doing, why it's so important to hit their marks. I think having that insight from a driver who's driven these cars relatively recently, no offense to Martin Brundle, he retired many years ago, of course, but somebody who's driven these cars competitively more recently than that, I think it's great. And I think Rosberg was fantastic. Nico Rosberg? I still call him Rosberg because that's what he was when he was racing, wasn't he? So Nico Rosberg, I think, was great this weekend. So I'd love to see him get a few more chances in commentary. And I do wonder, I think Stuart made the point on Twitter, if maybe Martin Brundle now will start to do less and less and eventually kind of go into retirement quietly, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, I thought Rosberg was great today, Dan. I really, really do. And more, please. Nailed it. Nailed it. Nailed it. Nailed it.
Yeah, I thought he was awesome as well. I think when he's come in to do, I thought he was great in quali. When he's done practice before, I think he's been really, really good. And I don't want to have a go at other commentators because it's an impossible job. Well, there's always going to be someone who's annoyed. It's so difficult to always keep you cool and know exactly what's going on all the time for 2 hours. But I think Rosberg's been the best alongside Crofty. I think he's much better than Di Resta, who's had quite a few opportunities. And if this was Rosberg's first race, of all races, to have a carnage one like that, and he was as good as he was, I think he'd be a perfect replacement for Brundle.
Yeah, I'd quite. I mean, I saw someone mention Alex Jakes there. KTB says Alex Jakes. I'd love to see him get the gig. But like, we give Crofty stick, but we've not to the same level, of course. They do it to millions, but you know, we've had 8,000 people before on testing streams, Dan, and we've tried to do commentary, and it's bloody hard. It is. Yeah, it's not easy. So.
Yeah, I could barely get my words out a second ago, tripping up. You know, it's not as easy as people think sometimes.
Thank you to Enki for your contribution. Says no Nico commentary. Highlights will have explosions. And Arian, thank you very much for yours as well. Says I enjoy BBC Radio 5 live feed on F1 the best. I sometimes sync that up to testing and not testing to practice and listen to them during practice. Just nice to get a bit of insight there. And always nice when you get Marcus Ericsson on, or used to do. It was always good because obviously, you know, King Marcus of Ericsson. Why not? Absolutely. So yeah, I think I didn't answer the question about the summer break, did I either? That somebody asked me earlier, so I feel quite rude. So if you're still here, apologies. But I'm going to London, I think, for maybe 4 days for a break. Might be meeting up with Stuart for a drink as well, so that'll be nice. Not seen him since Autosport a couple of years ago. I would come down and see you, Dan, but it's, you know, I'm not heading all the way down there to Middle Earth or whatever it is. It's quite a way. It's quite a trip. I know when you said you went up to Autosport, which is in Birmingham, I think you said it was a hell of a drive. So
it takes a while.
Lincoln down to you is quite a trip. So yeah, unless you want to pop up to London, mate, I'll probably have to wait for Autosport to see you again. But yeah, going to go to London for a few days. Content-wise, yeah, not masses, but there'll still be videos. And then I think you're very similar, Dan. I'm going to ramp things up again from Belgium because I feel like I've been slacking over race weekends lately. So, but yeah, going to enjoy a nice relaxed time pretty much and not worry too much about F1. I'm going to go watch some review DVDs starting with 1997 because I love 97 as a season despite the ending. Yeah. I don't know why. It's one of my favourite seasons, even though my driver got disqualified at the end of it all.
I was going to say, I normally skip the early 2000s. I normally start around 2005, you know, when it starts getting good.
97, 99, and 2003 are staples of mine if I sit watching review DVDs. DVDs? What are DVDs?
Not 2001. Not a real fanboy. Come on.
Michael Schumacher's my hero, but I want to be entertained. I don't want to watch one guy just dominate a whole DVD. To be fair, thank you to Harry D. Yeet again. It says tinfoil hat. Lewis drank Vettel's fuel to gain advantage, and that's why he felt dizzy. There you go. I mean, that's nailed on. Cheating. It's a disgrace. Thank you. We're going to wrap it up there, Dan. I'll just have a quick check of the FIA thing. Otherwise, I'm just going to be into nonsense and start talking about cheese again or something. I don't know. Nothing. No update from the FIA. Quick check on the old Twitter sphere. I imagine if there's nothing from the FIA, there's not really anything from Twitter either. So, but you never know. You never know. So just to confirm, anybody tuning in late, all investigations have been cleared with reprimands or no further action, except now Sebastian Vettel, who's been summoned to the stewards for not having enough fuel in the car at the end to be tested by the FIA. And that we think in chat, and I think as well, that's possibly disqualification for that one. So read document 56, says Dave S over on Twitter. Is that sporting regs? That sounds like a sporting regs thing. I'll leave it for today. Thank you though for those on Twitter reaching out. Let me know which one it is. We're going to leave it there. But thank you very much, Dan. It's been a pleasure as always, mate. It was a bit of a long one today, but chaotic race, chaotic finish, still going on as we speak. But what a way to head off to the summer break. Long I'll wait till Belgium.
Yeah, but it's Belgium. And if we've seen mad races here, we saw a great race at Paul Ricard. I'm not ready for Belgium, I don't think. I need the 4 weeks off to prepare But thanks for having me, mate. What a race today. Like you said right at the beginning, I was expecting a bit of a stinker. I was expecting to really be wringing the teeth of this one to try and get something out. And we don't have enough time how good it was. So it's been a pleasure, man. Thank you for having me.
No worries, mate. And I'm sure I'll talk to you shortly. I don't know why I spoke like that, but there you go. Bloody hell.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm going. See you later. See you later, chat.
Thank you to Dan. Thank you to you guys as well for tuning in. Thank you everyone for your contributions. Raz at the end there just saying Stewards. Mad at Vettel for wearing a shirt. Also Stewards pour 0.7 litres from Vettel's fuel tank. Very good stuff. Thank you everyone for your contributions today. For all your super chats, whether it's Charles or Lee with their massive $500 donations or any amount, it's all massively appreciated. It goes back into the business is the boring answer, but I'll just say channel because it's the way to do. That is it though. That's the summer break. We're there already. I can't quite believe it. Like I say, there will be content. It's not going to be 3, 4, 5 videos a week at this stage. I'm hoping to get back to sort of 3, 4 lots of content a week from Belgium onwards, which I might regret after countless triple headers, but we'll see. But there will be a couple of videos every week over the next few weeks as we gear up for Belgium. It'll be here before you know it. I know it feels like a long wait. 855 likes. If you could all drop a like before we disappear, that'd be massively appreciated as well. Just to say thank you to those who contributed today. Massively appreciated, like I say. I will be back later this week. I might do a news roundup tomorrow with all this kicking off with Sebastian Vettel and that, but there will be a video later this week, a couple of them to come. Might consider a stream Wednesday, just need to make sure I can find someone for it, but we'll go into that over on Twitter and that. And then, of course, it's Belgium in about 4 weeks' time. 3 weeks' time, whatever it is. It's just... it's fine. I've got review DVDs. We all have. Like I said, don't forget to drop a like. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new as well. Lots coming up over the next... God knows how many months left of the season. I can't remember now, 5 or 6 months, whatever it is. And you can follow as well over on social media. Links you need for that should be in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. And until next time, goodbye.